2022 Planning Board meeting, calling it to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty.
Present.
The Secretary is here. Board Member Catalinato.
Present.
Board Member Mutu.
Present.
Board Member Neely.
Present.
Board Member Fulham.
She's right here.
She's running down the hall.
To the wire.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can you please join in for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have approval of minutes?
We do, Madam Chair. August 25th.
August 25th. Can I have a motion to approve by Dennis, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. So the agenda is in order. We're going to try to work through the first items up until item number 14. And I don't know exactly how much time that's going to take, but we're thinking maybe 3 or 3:30, and then we're going to do Lewis Road for the rest of the session. So if that goes till 6 o'clock, it'll go to 6 o'clock. Just wanted you to know that, because you're all sitting here. You might want to go have a coffee. So we're going to go in order, and Claire, that's you, Long Island Resources Corp., Tesla.
Yes, I want to ask the applicant to come up. So last meeting, we passed out a very basic report. I did do a couple updates. The applicant has responded to one issue, so we could maybe dive into that right away. So in short, I just want to give a brief explanation what the application is. This is to take the existing building. Can you see it up there? So that is the pier, what was Pier 1, now it's a Colette's resale furniture store, and they would like to put a Tesla dealer in there. I guess mostly online sales, that's their model. So that is good, that's probably less intense. This is what the building is going to look like. I'm suggesting with the report that the area be weighed in on that. That's a little different than the existing on it, though the materials.
Is it going to be sideways like that, Claire?
It sure is. Let's just get technical here.
I mean, I just passed the building on my way here. I can't believe they're actually going to upend it.
So that is that. The Tesla red is involved in it, but the signage is subtle, which is good.
What's that red? Looks like firebox in the front.
Yeah, that's a sign.
That's a silent sign,
Is that legal?
Oh, does it meet the code? Yes, it would have to meet the code, or else a variance would be necessary, so.
It looks like it's awfully close to the road, that's why I'm asking.
They'd have to meet the 20 feet, again, they'd have, or
Okay.
get a variance. Do we have a location for the sign yet? Just identify yourself.
We'll make sure that
That
John Bennett
complies.
and Lisa Poyer, it'll meet the code or won't ask for a variance. But I think the parking is at 25, so, I mean, it's it's a rendering, so.
It's hard to tell what
not
it
to
is.
scale. Yeah, it's not to scale, but well, if for some reason they want something other than less than 25 feet because of the character of the neighborhood or other signs, you'll have to go to the zoning board of appeals. I'm going to try to get them not to do that, but maybe there's a reason that they want to do it. So far, we'll say we'll meet the code, unless the client directs otherwise.
Okay, good. So do you want to go through this?
Yeah, so that's on, I believe it's page number.
Page 19 in the packet, 1819.
Yeah.
Claire, do you have an updated copy?
Sorry, I emailed that to you. Did you not get it?
Oh, that's fine.
We can share.
It's page 9.
This is the old one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, neither John or I received it.
Oh,
Yeah,
did I?
my staff is better than I am at printing stuff out, so I'm sorry, Claire.
That's fine.
Wait, what do I have here? No.
do you have another copy?
It's similar to the old one.
It's very similar
Okay,
to the other one.
that's
It's
fine.
very similar, same, there's no new issues. I'm going to add the signage, obviously, as an
Okay.
issue,
Okay.
but the first, well, I just want to describe it very quickly. It is a site plan special exception, so we have to have a public hearing. It is a motor vehicle dealer, and it is in an existing 19,242 square foot building. And just as an aside, buildings down in highway business are a maximum of 15,000 square feet, but there's no proposed expansion with this application. So there's a pre-submission conference on October 13th, and there were no comments during the conference nor during the 30-day written comment period. We'll have a full site plan special exception applications with any information about engineering, elevations, landscaping, and lighting as required. So the first issue, the applicant did respond to this, and I'll have him speak on this. So I'm considering this an unlisted action because it's specifically not referred to in any type 1 or type 2 list. Secret is to me, is very literal. Like if you are doing, it says, a retrofit of a building, and it continues to say for green purposes, this is obviously not for green purposes. So those, that doesn't apply. And I think I'll let John go on with his explanation that he thinks it's a type 2 action because it's construction less than 4,000 square feet. And I don't think it's construction in this
It's
case.
unlisted, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what the state regs say. I have a 6-page letter, and 5 pages of it explain why this is a type 2 action. Construction or expansion of a primary, accessory, or non-residential structure involving less than 4,000 square feet. 0 is less than 4,000 square feet. And everybody has to remember that land use laws are contrary and in derogation of people's property rights at common law. And so they are to be construed strictly against the municipality. So when you have construction of a primary or accessory non-residential structure involving less than 4,000 square feet of gross floor area and not involving a change in zone or a use variance and consistent with local land use controls, and I gave you sites from the GEIS that the DEC went through when they amended the seeker regulations. There was some back and forth as to whether or not, if it was a special exception, did that take it out of the type 2 requirements? And the DEC firmly came down in the negative. They said no, merely because it's a special exception. And remember, people forget, a special exception is a term of art. It is a use that is permitted upon special exception. It is not a variance. Okay, so if you're less than 4,000 square feet, per force, 0, it's a type 2 action. And what it talks about is the construction or expansion of less than 4,000 square feet. It could be a different use there, but if you're expanding less than 4,000 square feet, it talks about the type of the activity. It doesn't talk about the use. The statute doesn't say it doesn't say not involving a change in use. It says not involving a change in zoning or a use variance and consistent with local land use controls. So it's really turning logic on its head in an area where these things have to be construed against the municipality to say that if I was to have I'll tell you what we can do. We'll expand the building by 1 foot. If we construct, we'll put a 1 square foot addition on it. And then is there an argument? Of course not. You're turning logic on its head to say that you can have a 4,000 square foot expansion under this safe harbor to an existing building. But if you're doing 0, it comes out of the ambit of a type 2 action.
So it's special exception, right?
It
That
is
doesn't
special
matter.
exception, which is a permitted use.
I don't see an issue here.
It's a type 2 action.
Yeah.
If you guys are fine with it.
What are the other
it's
arguments that you
subject-
have in your 5-page letter?
We can, all I do is I go through case law and I go through the
I don't.
statute itself. Okay,
I mean, not at all.
We'll go type 2.
Type 2 and then move forward. Okay.
thank you.
Save
So
5 pages.
eloquent.
It's interesting research, though. I always like to read that.
You know what, it is actually pretty interesting.
is.
I
It
mean,
is
I'm a
interesting.
nerd, but what can I tell you? I enjoy this
So
stuff.
much.
So,
Okay.
if you don't mind, I'll just go through the rest of it, a little bit
Please.
of just facts here, which number 2, I've already kind of explained, the limits on the size and square footage. the type of car dealership, and in this case is online sales only, but he will be given a use that is motor vehicle dealership, which is per the code. Parking requirements shall be met. So the existing parking lot is 25 feet, where 50 feet is required. I would maybe on number 6, make sure there's no display within the 50 feet if the board is
That's the
able to
key
that.
component.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prevent-
Great.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, perfect.
I don't think Tesla would want it anyway.
So the additional plantings, there are street trees right now, but maybe some to screen any parking in the front. So just like a low boxwood type of planting. So that's number 7. And then the architecture I just touched on. We'd have the ARB weigh in on the site plan phase. The outdoor storage vehicles and parking shall be noted, as shall setbacks. If there's parking for outdoor storage, that will generate parking, so we just have to have that noted. The appearance of the proposed bays, so that, I just want to show you the elevation one more time.
Bays are in the rear.
Huh?
The bays are in the rear.
No, I think there's one in the front, am I mistaken? Yeah, there's one proposed in the front, and I'm going to turn it to the correct view, just so you can see it. So that would be an addition, that they're putting this bay on the east side, and then the one on the other. Is it kind of more like display inside kind of bay, or an active bay? Do you know?
One on the east side is more of the active bay, the one on the west is more of a display.
Okay. It
And
doesn't
it's-
seem bad because of the big windows, but it's up to the board. You know, that is the most visible
They
sign.
haven't changed the iconic architecture of the building,
Yeah.
which is nice, and it works within that.
Starling's bowling.
Way back. Way back.
Starling's
Yeah.
bowling.
On item 3, you have type of car dealership, online sales only. Was this going to be a service?
No,
No.
thank you, because I'll respond to that.
Okay.
If that's okay, Claire?
Of course, go ahead.
Okay. So, the current Tesla sales model is online sales, but I don't think it would be appropriate to limit it to that. It's a automobile dealership, so if their model changes and they want to do sales right there, they shouldn't have to come back here, because I'm asking for a use, which is an automobile dealership. So I just wanted
I know,
to,
but when it says here online sales only, is that limiting you by having that in the
I don't,
report?
yeah, I would like to take that out, yeah.
So the wording should be, the applicant proposes online sales at this time, but we would want to have it open to a typical automobile
I
Why
don't
don't you
dealership.
just
say
think there should be any
motor-
limited language.
motor vehicle
You should probably
dealership?
be silent about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just say motor, type of, it's
I
a
agree.
motor vehicle dealership.
Including service and such,
Sales
right?
and service.
Yeah.
Oh, and service, and then the car wash, right? So that is that can be a zero discharge?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So we're working with the health department
That obviously doesn't exist now.
now. No.
Correct.
No. There's like, what's in there now? Colette.
Colette,
Yeah.
the pop-up
Yeah,
shop.
Yeah.
But there's enough water there.
It has to meet the Suffolk County Health
Say it,
Department
okay.
standards. Could I just quickly run through some of the comments, unless you're...
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'll be very quick. We'll meet the parking requirements. Existing parking is in the front is only 25, but that's a pre-existing, I just want to make sure that no one's trying to have me move the parking back to 50 feet, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming thing. The transitional buffer, of course, we're going to have to meet. There's no pre-existing transitional relief from that for display. So I would just, it says where 50 is required, but actually it's not required, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming area. But yes, of course, we'd have to meet, so it's a question that's left there, 50 is required, but as long as there's acknowledgement that we're entitled to maintain the parking at the
25.
pre-existing, at 25. That would be very helpful. The additional plantings, I just want to make sure that we'll give you something that's just low, because,
Boxwoods, just to soften the
I
view of the
understand.
asphalt.
The appearance of the building, we have to work it out with the ARB, and I understand that. Setbacks, all the appearance stuff, 0 days charge. The original, and maybe it's disappeared, but charging stations including universal.
What does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
Oh, Tesla has
Not
their
just
own
Tesla.
charging,
Yeah.
and then so a
Right.
universal would be if the Leaf showed up and wanted to charge there or something like that.
But they only want a Tesla car.
I mean, there might be
They only
other
want a
visitors.
Tesla charging station,
Only
right?
Teslas.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think you take that out.
Yeah.
I disagree because we need charging stations
Okay,
in this town.
I understand. However, I did cite literally a constitutional law.
Yeah, I
On
mean, you
that.
can't, you
Yeah.
can't
You
ask
can't
Tesla
require
to
We're going
provide.
to, we're going to cite them
provide the
elsewhere.
cut charging.
You know, we can cite them.
It's like asking
Various
McDonald's to
other-
open Burger.
It's Loretto versus
Brand-
Is
Telephone.
it?
Brand specific.
It's a 1982.
So nobody
Supreme
who
Court
has a
case.
car charger, I mean, the person working here can't be
It's a
charged?
Tesla. You have a Tesla?
Give you a Tesla.
This is a Tesla
It's
facility.
different if we had a generic commercial site plan, let's say, you know, a retail store, and we want to install charging stations, then they'd have to be universal. Like,
Yeah.
we're pushing for it at the Aquatic Center on McGee Street. We're pushing for them to have charging stations. They'd be universal. They can't come in and then say, we're just doing Tesla stations.
And Europe is pushing Tesla to get on board and have everybody have a universal charging
Well,
system.
that could be the
That may
case, but that
happen
has to
down
be
the
with
road.
consent.
Yeah.
I just for everyone's edification, there's a case, Loretto versus Teleprompter Manhattan. It's a United States Supreme Court case, 1982. And when they first started doing cable in New York said, you've got to let us put the cable on all your buildings. And the Supreme Court said, that's a physical intrusion. That's a taking. So if I want to put charging stations there, Tesla gets to say who gets to intrude on the property, because it's private property.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
It's one of those things, you know, people talk and yell and complain about, you know, you've had people wagging their finger here and saying, you know, rights are being deprived. An actual regulatory taking is pretty hard to prove, but where the U.S. Supreme Court draws the line is when you're trying to insist upon a physical intrusion on the property,
On
no
the
matter
pro-
how
on the
slight.
property.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where
Okay.
that's where they draw the line.
Storage of batteries?
So I'm taking out, including universal, so charging stations, period.
Storage of batteries, what's,
So somebody brought up the storage of the batteries and how they'd be stored. That was a question that
So
the
we're
board
gonna
had.
give you information.
give
on
us
that.
Right,
info on
on the
that.
site plan application.
No solar is proposed,
No
correct?
Solar,
But Tesla has
Well-
solar roof shingles. They
Yeah,
should put them- they-
but the existing facility doesn't.
doesn't allow for that because it's a rounded,
Storage of batteries, was that to imply the batteries for Tesla cars, or were we talking about, I know at one point we talked about using Tesla batteries as a backup storage for,
I understood it as Tesla automobile batteries, but whatever it is, Tom
That's
and George, we're gonna give you that, because you asked for it and you're entitled to it, to make sure that there's safety precautions, not only in terms of, you know, intrusion into groundwater, but fire and stuff
yeah,
like
but I
that.
think when that comment was made, at least from like, my recollection or
Yep.
intent was that if you're putting solar panels on there and you also want to use Tesla power walls or battery storage as a way to augment the power at the site.
Well, there's no intent to do that now. I haven't been informed of any intent to do that. As I understood, and Tom, I think you were the first
I
one
was
to
the one
ask
that,
it.
yeah.
The
The
question
question
was
was
car
storage of
batteries.
Tesla batteries to replace
Yeah.
Tesla
I
batteries
didn't
in
even know
vehicles.
if that happens. I don't know if that's,
I believe that as they
But we'll
start
keep
to
it
go
in.
bad, they will actually call and order on-demand batteries. They'll come in for a short
Not something you
period.
store 10
The
of
car
them,
will
say.
come in, they'll exchange it,
But we'll
they'll
give you the
take the
check
batteries and
version.
ship them out
Okay.
and dispose of them at
just give us,
the...
give
It's
us
a
a little.
safety-
Yeah, we'll give you that
narrative on it,
information.
it's an
okay?
understandable.
But they won't be
safety
on
issue.
site very long, and then they will be in proper storage containers.
Okay, 15 and 16?
And 15 is the referrals, it's typical, and 16 is that there has to be a public hearing.
Where does the car wash fit in terms of use? You know, because it has been a dry use for.
You will,
long time.
yeah, but it's all recycled. I can't think of a car
It's like a
dealer
closed
now
loop, isn't
that
it?
when
Those
you
kinds
drop
of
the car
systems?
off to maintenance. they're
Sure, I'm not
kind enough
arguing
to-
that. I'm just
to
saying
charge
it's a
it.
different use. So is that, what's your
It's
opinion?
accessory, it's
Accessory
considered
use.
accessory. So we, very recently, a couple across the street from here, we put in these car washes,
Mercedes has one,
Yeah, Audi has
Lexus
one.
has one.
and they're all
Audi has one.
closed
Yeah.
systems
Okay,
now.
cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
which is great. So,
I get a free coupon.
You used to, I don't know, and then Land Rover, they deliver to you with a little thing that says, "We hope you appreciate our royal bath."
A royal bath?
That's the car wash.
Because of Land Rover.
It's the Hamptons.
Don't you love marketing?
Do you
It's the
think in this
Hamptons.
case, I know we have a big meeting next one,
Yes.
but in this case, do you want this all updated and we'll just adopt it clean next week?
Yes.
Does that make sense to you,
Yes.
John?
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah,
good,
because
and
there's
you'll
a
get
couple
us whatever
changes.
information
We'll
you
just
need.
get the language right for everybody.
Get it on the next one.
Yeah, so
I don't
this
think we
we
have
just,
any
if
information
John is
yet.
agreeable, we'll just do it this
It'll all
extension
be at the
today
site
to the
plan.
15th.
That's fine, you just to give you time to update it based upon the
Perfect.
comments today.
Right.
That's fine.
Excellent. Thank
Any-
you.
We need
Any
an
thought
action
for
for,
public hearing?
are we an action deadline?
Yeah, so 1 week extension.
Could we,
I'll move it.
you don't want to set a public hearing?
No.
Oh, we
Oh,
can't.
no,
Just
you need your
adopt
site
the
We
plan.
need site plan
Oh,
application.
that's a
That's
little
fine.
cart before the horse,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Details.
And the referrals as well, wait for, need to be for the?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Okay, so we'll get a week's extension, and
Okay.
it'll be on the agenda for next week.
Yeah, and if you're
15th.
fine, we'll just adopt it
Okay.
clean copy.
Thanks for getting
So-
us
you-
in here.
Yes, motion for the week extension
Move.
by Dennis, second by Gloria, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Claire, you are 720 Butter Lane.
Yes, so as with this one and the other ones I have on the agenda, these all have action deadlines either today or next week. So I just wanted to give some feedback from the board. This one had a lot of public interest at the public hearing. This is 720 Butter Lane for hemp processing associated with the egg reserve on the property. I actually even gave you the easements in this case, so that's part of the
But
package.
this is action,
This is an action deadline.
today.
It is, so the first action, and the applicant has submitted the request, is to extend it for the 1 week. So if we do that right now, quick, we'll just clean the pack, you know.
Okay, so can I have a motion to extend this till the 15th? Motion by Kate, second by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. It is extended.
Thank you. And then I'm going to have the applicant's representative come up here. And I'll just go through it, a couple of the comments. The Ag Advisory Committee did weigh in on it. It wasn't part of your package. I'll send that to you today so you have it. It was generally positive, though, on the application. And so this is an instance where the planning board approved phase 1, which is to legalize the existing structures on the property. There was a trailer that is now used for the hemp processing. And the second phase was to do let's see what the second phase exactly was for. Phase 2 includes proposes photovoltaic panels on the southern portion of the existing metal barn, a 900 square foot concrete apron with overhang, 120 square foot concrete equipment pad area for the health department approved sanitary system, proposed the removal of 3 existing trailers to the west of the existing farm stand, with 5 proposed parking spaces to the south of the farm stand, with both phases showing 8 parking spaces dedicated to the existing farm stand.
Excuse me, Claire, why are we reviewing it now if we've extended it?
No, 2 phases. You approved phase 1, and then the second phase was
I know,
part
but
of a
why-
public process.
Why are we reviewing it now if we've already
Because
voted
the
an
extension is for
extension?
next, I want you to give out me feedback because next meeting I would be at action deadline with a decision on this project. That's why. You haven't discussed this since the public hearing where there was public interest and you had some questions for the applicant. And we can go through that.
Yeah, just nice to-
Unless you think this application's great and I will write a decision for next week.
The main
Any
issue here
questions?
Was the odors and smell.
Public hearing, there was a lot of issue about the odor.
Right. So these are the public comments. October 13th, neighborhood is residential, delayed decision, smell is strong, manufacturing facility is a zoning issue, nature of farming is noise and smells. This is an organic farm, it supports farming. Neighboring property is the smell of marijuana only 4 months of the year. Sorry, I'll put that. What are the details of the operation? Need more information. Why are so many employee parking spaces?
Right, the parking was an issue, right? There were
Right.
6 parking spaces, I believe, right up, snubbed up to the road.
Correct, yeah.
Their existing parking, it's just
Just
formalizing.
identify yourself.
Carl Benacasa, for the applicant. The parking spaces currently exist in the existing farm stand operation. We're just formalizing them. There's no plan to pave or anything like that. It's just gravel.
I just want to show the, oh,
Well, the
Sorry.
parking really isn't marked, it's just kind of,
Just kind of
It's
there.
in-
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
I want to get you to the site plan so you can see what we're talking about. Sorry. This is the site plan. This is the phase 2 improvements. I'm sorry, it's very tiny, but. So this is the photovoltaics, the solar on the roof, and these are the parking spaces being added. And of course, the trailers are being removed, and there's an overhang proposed with the application. So this is the site plan.
is there not also air conditioning for the building?
There is, it's proposed on the south side of the building,
Here?
yeah.
Okay.
It's for climate control for the employees. The unit's going to be comparable to a residential air conditioning unit. It's not commercial grade or anything like that.
Because I think that was one of the concerns of
Right.
the neighbors, that the,
Yes.
So you just make sure that meets setbacks for the air
yeah,
conditioning
and
units?
I think it also might mitigate some of the odor issues if the building is sealed.
I mean, it's,
Now, we had no way of knowing this, but he said the odor is when it's actually growing and not when it's harvested.
Right.
Right.
that's what
Do
it
we
says.
know that? We don't know that.
I go by what he tells me.
Odor is a hard thing to quantify.
Yes.
I mean,
It's a hard
if you-
thing to control, too.
If you,
yeah.
if you pass a broccoli field or cauliflower field, there are gonna be odors associated with that as well. I was listening during the public hearing, and, you know, I felt bad for the neighbors, but a farm is a farm. and
Yeah.
Farms come with odor depending upon crop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
they
think
termed
it
this
had
a
noise
residential neighborhood. We all know that it was not a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's an
the
agricultural
farm
neighborhood.
predates people.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was also some comment that the odors were coming from another marijuana farm
Yeah.
down the road.
Nova's Ark.
Yeah, from Noah's Ark.
So it's, again, it's hard to pinpoint where they come from.
Right. But so we have a parking issue?
No, the parking, they're proposing the parking for the farm stand, and then they're proposing parking to the north and south formalized for the employees for the property. Those are the ones you see, it's like light, I'm sorry, can't see what I'm
Right
pointing
up-
to,
right where
but
the hand
here
is, yeah.
and here. So the employees will park here and here, and, to date, it's been more informal. And so this would be more formalized parking.
You have the aerial about that?
Yeah,
How many parking spaces?
it's better, yeah, the aerial's clear.
Oh, okay, so yeah. I see.
So the parking's gonna go along here and now along here. It's probably being done right now, it's just a little bit more formalized.
But it's remaining gravel, not paved, right? Oh, it's gonna. be
It's remain
gravel.
gravel. There's no proposed pavement. That's correct.
Carl, how's the processing use classified? I think it's allowed, right, under, it's on-farm processing, but can you just, or Claire, name the code section, just as I familiarize myself with that?
With like ag and markets?
Well,
Or
yeah, I mean,
the
he's gonna
state
have an
code?
ag and markets license for processing, but where is that permitted underneath the Southampton Town Code? What is it called,
Oh,
under this zoning?
In this zoning, it's agriculture.
It's agriculture.
Yeah.
And agriculture is permitted on-farm processing under what section of the,
Ag and markets law.
of ag and markets law? Okay.
So the
Which
states.
supersedes.
Correct.
So this,
Got it.
within the, under ag and markets law, that's included in the definition of agriculture. The town doesn't really
Right.
define it
Okay.
that way, because ag and markets preempts the field.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so I just asking that because of the manufacturing facility comment here. Yes, it is allowed because the state law supersedes the local law
That's
about
correct.
agriculture and on-farm
Do you want me
processing.
to add
Got it.
something about the use?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, they asked and we're answering, right? So I think it's important to have that on record.
The, as I remember, the odor question, the smell question was the growing, and also there was some question about the processing, and I think the subject, like roasting coffee, you know, are you going to be getting odors during the processing? You know, are they cooking it in some way, I think was kind of
So-
what was asked.
As I understand it, the processing one is entirely within the proposed the structure,
Right.
proposed site plan. And no, I don't think it involves cooking it, or, from what David was telling us, and I am relying on his expertise there, the smell is actually related to the harvesting
Okay.
and not to the
I
processing.
think it was a question, is there going to be an odor related to the processing?
No, I think that the smell, if any, the odor, if any, will be related to the harvesting, not the processing.
Claire, there was some discussion at the agenda meeting about development rights here, and I think we need to include that in the property description.
Okay.
So can you,
Yes, I just mentioned that it's snag reserve that the town has the interest on. But I can go further. It's been referred to CPF to get any comments they may have had, so I will just reach out to them before the next meeting, make sure. But you wanted just a description of the
a
development rights.
description, yeah, of the development rights and what interest the town has in the property?
The easement,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Does it get referred to the ag advisory?
It did, and I did get those comments back, but I just got an email to me, and they
Oh,
lost.
okay.
They got lost. I'll give them to him and you, so you'll have them before next meeting.
So are there any other questions that Claire can incorporate in her report? Anything else? Okay, Claire.
Great.
So
No,
it.
that's good. So
Thank
that's
you, Carl. We have the extension.
You have the-
We voted on it, yes.
Always good to see you. Thank
Okay,
you.
good to see you
Thanks,
too.
Carl.
Thank you.
Okay, Anthony, you're up with Alice Clifton, number 4.
Number 3.
Did we do 3?
Number 3, Noyak
Oh,
Northfield.
sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, number 3, Noyak Northfield. And who's representing that?
Wayne Brewer.
Wayne?
All right, so we've looked at this. This is an application for a 4-lot PRD cluster plan. The property is roughly 12.2 acres. It's split zoned. Have it on the aerial here. The property is split zoned, and I'll show you where that is on the next map. CR 200 to the south, and then R80 to the north. It's in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District and the New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area.
No, you said it separately.
They submitted a 4-lot yield map showing 1 lot conforming to the CR 200 zoning district and then 3 other lots in the R80. Well, they also submitted a cluster plan showing the 4 lots clustered in this portion of the property, which sit directly across the street from development in the other subdivision, with the open space to the north here and then wrapping around and coming around the bottom. Just real quick to show the planning board, given the town's open space here, and open space down here, that layout of open space is sensible. It seems to make the most sense in this case. It gives the chunk up here that connects to the open space up here, continues down here, connecting to the town and connecting down here as well. And then putting the lots where development exists. So we have a pre-application report here. Tried to change it up a little bit, put in an aerial. I don't know if it's helpful, but so like I said, just over 12 acres with roughly 6.89 acres representing 56% of the property preserved as open space. I just showed you the 2 maps, so I tried to incorporate the standard yield plan with 4 maps and then the planned residential. And the planned residential development plan in there, so that's in the report. This is considered a minor review under the town code. This is an unlisted action under SECRA, so the applicant will need to submit, in this case I would do a long environmental assessment form. Note here, the property is in the New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area, and I should note, it's not in here, the applicant did prepare an archaeological report and submitted it, so I will reference that in there. They didn't reveal any findings. In terms of conformance with the comp plan, nothing specific about this property. It is a CPF priority piece. However, the comp plan talks about PRDs, cluster plans, and preserving open space. So I guess to the extent that the property is proposed for a PRD plan, would be consistent with that concept under the comprehensive plan.
Has there been any action with CPF?
I'm sure CPF has been in contact, and they have been in contact with each other over the years.
This is the field that real estate brokers told
Yeah, well, I'm going to get to that, yeah.
homeowners
Yeah.
that it would be stay forever free.
Because it was just not signed by the town
Oh, that's right,
supervisor.
there was, yeah.
The park area, just so you know, on the yield map, the applicant did go out of their way and show the required park area. In this particular case, if we're not going to require a park, which we probably wouldn't, given that we have the trail network, we would probably just take the fee. Public comments, so we got a bunch of comments at the hearing, which was on September 22nd, and then closed with a 30-day written comment period. And we got significant opposition. First and foremost, as you said, a lot of the neighbors said they were led to believe that this property was preserved, and that's what they had put on the record. So, and they have concerns about the loss of additional natural vegetation and wildlife habitat, traffic impacts. It's a private road. Oh no, it's not a private road. I take that back.
It's the issue with the intersection of Noyak Road.
That's right, yeah. Again, concerns about septic systems and groundwater, impacts to the existing trail network, and then the character of the community. Obviously, it's a very wooded area. We did referrals to all the agencies that were required, which I listed here. And we received comments from the Office of Fire Prevention, Conservation Board, and the Trails Advisory Board, and I attached them at the end of the reports for you, which were in there. With respect to the Conservation Board, they gave, their comments. There's no wetlands or anything like that, but they would recommend the PRD plan. They would like to see limited driveways, and they recommended a buffer along the road. And actually, subsequent to that hearing, the applicant did submit a revised plan, and their revised plan, in addition to the open space, does show a 50-foot buffer on the lots along Northview. So that's already in there. So I think for the Conservation Board, we probably addressed most of their concerns. The Trails Advisory Board said they supported the project with the relocation of the trail. And then the town's Office of Fire Prevention came back, noted that there is no public water. They want to see public water and hydrants put in. To be quite honest, that's going to be driven by Water Authority and Health Department application. But I would note that the revised survey that the applicant gave us did show that right across the street, associated with the other subdivision, there are fire cisterns right across the street. So
Cisterns?
Yeah. But they didn't note that on the original application.
No, that application, that development was a long time ago.
Yeah.
When the fire department was.
So I don't know what's going to be required, but it's going to come out of, like I said, the review with the water.
All up to the
The
health
water,
department.
that's right, and the water main is over 3,000 feet away, so I don't think it's within that criteria that they'll have to bring it in, but I can't say that. That's not our jurisdiction. But in any case, they did give the comments on the fire district. So we'll see. If there's going to be public water, then there'll be a hydrant, and if not, then they might have to put in a cistern or something. So we didn't get any comments from the town engineer, so I put a condition in here that talks about that. In terms of recommendations for the subdivision, and the first one here, okay, I got a little bit ahead of myself. The town code requires, we support the PRD plan, obviously. The town code requires a minimum of 50% open space if it's in the R80 zoning district, and a minimum of 65% if it's in the CR 200 zoning district. The applicant's proposing 56.5% in property split zone. So which do you apply? My report says just do 65%, and I just sort of went with that. I didn't realize that if you look at the subdivision maps that are in the report, the applicant actually did the calculation. They calculated 50% of what would be preserved in the R80 zone and 65% of what would be required in the CR 200 zone. And that's where they came up with the 56% in the total. I'll be honest with you, I'm comfortable with that in my opinion, only because they've acknowledged the percentages within the respective zone. I just sort of took, I wasn't acknowledging the split zone, I just said let's go with the 65%. But if the board's okay with the calculation that they did, that calculated the minimum in those zones, I think that would be in conformance with the code, and I would let the board have that discussion. The second comment talks about engineer. Any comments that we receive from the engineer subsequent to this will just be included, and they'll have to meet those conditions. The property CPF priority, and although we can't mandate it, we would urge the applicant to keep talking with the town. They have money to spend on preservation, so if there's any opportunity to preserve the property, that'd be great, but we can't mandate it. As I said with number 4, it's unlisted. They'll do the long form and put in the archaeological report, which has already been submitted. The clearing limitations will be based on the size of the property. Properties, which shows 50% in this case for each of the lots. The 15% limitation on fertilized vegetation. Number 7 notes that there are some steep slopes on this property. The zoning code doesn't require that they get eliminated or excluded from yield when the yield map shows that the properties are over 80,000 square feet. So then they don't get excluded, but we want to see them on the final map to make sure our building envelopes, if they have to be adjusted if needed. So we will ask for it regardless. Number 8 talks about the 50-foot buffer, so we're going to require that on the subdivision. It'll have to have language that would allow for driveways. The final map should just indicate whether the proposed open space is to be dedicated to the town, which is the planning board's recommendation and preference. The Trails Advisory Board supported the project and the relocation of the trail. Number 11, with respect to the common driveways, this came out of the Conservation Board. And theirs was really just to sort of minimize clearing and the rest of it. I think the applicant doesn't want to do the common driveways. There are no flag lots here, so I don't know if it's necessary, so I'll let the board have that discussion. With respect to the existing conservation easement, look, as you said, Gloria, something happened, right? Something wasn't signed, it wasn't filed, so at the end of the day, there was no conservation easement, and the property is eligible for subdivision. That's the bottom line. Any issues as it relates to, what, I'm sorry?
Can you put conservation easement on wooded lot? I thought they were only for agricultural part. They can be put on wood parcels.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It was temporary, it was never permanent anyway. There was a 10-year limitation on there, so.
On that, but that was never filed.
But it was never filed, so-
signed, never, so that people who were showing that, those other houses for sale, assumed that
Yeah.
that was conservation, that it was protected,
Yeah.
and it wasn't.
I feel bad for them. There are a number of people that
I do
stood
too.
up to speak that evening, were pretty upset, thinking that they were, next to
But
a.
it would have expired anyway
Yeah.
by this point, so it would have been a nullity anyway.
But I don't think they were, they were told there was a conservation easement.
Right, in the first place,
Right.
And
I've
I-
been the victim of that, I understand that, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if it makes you feel any better, it would have, even if they had been told, it would have been long.
Yeah, and I understand it. Hearsay, it doesn't really circumvent land use laws and rights, but I felt bad for them. I felt like they were betrayed in a sense.
No question. And number 13 was the final application would be for the health department, we have to have health department approval. I think that taking into account the neighbors' concerns and everything, I think that the clustering and the addition of the buffer along the road, you're probably not going to see much going on in this beyond what's already there now, I think, with those. So I think Wayne wanted to speak about the common driveways unless the planning board is not particularly concerned one way or the other.
Good afternoon, Wayne Bruin, O'Shea, Marcinsigan Bruin for the applicant. Mr. Morrow is also present. Anthony, thanks for the report. You sort of glossed over the park requirement, and here we are proposing to dedicate to the town of Southampton lands that you desire for active trail purposes. And my understanding in the past is that satisfies your park requirement.
So you mean you don't need me?
Yeah, so I would ask you to change that and make sure when we file that will be the final. I appreciate Anthony recognizing that we did do, as this board often does, when you're in a split zone, you do proportions, whether it be building envelope, zoning, or even the open space. So the proportion here, it's not entirely in the CR 200 and it's not entirely in the R80, but we have 56% open space plus the buffers and the clearing on the lots. The other comment he raised is coming out of the Conservation Board about common driveways, which is normally your issue related to traffic. And clearly, when you have flag lots, combination of flag lots, you want common driveways. But here, there's nothing on this road, site distance or otherwise, that would dictate that. And to the extent they suggest that you're limiting clearing, I find that you're actually probably not, or very minimal. You still have to have a driveway. It ends up being wider and so on. You still have the driveway. So in that respect, I would say that I don't think we should go further with that. But I do want to report on the conservation easement issue, and I did at the hearing tell you the history, what I found, and we also submitted documentation to that. And as an attorney, we're often asked when someone's buying, we do a title search, and if someone wants to know that someone's representing that property across the street or otherwise is preserved, we go to the public record to see if in fact that is true. And that was always available to all those owners and so on. And the problem here, there was never a conservation easement recorded against that property. Actually, what occurred under the town code, and this goes to the issue that was raised, can you put a conservation easement? And there is a section in the code that as a landowner, if you have property that's worthy of protection of natural resources, you can go to the town board and ask for a conservation easement, either in perpetuity or a term. And if so, if you do that, you're entitled to get a tax abatement. So the landowner back in 2008 actually went to the town, and somehow a conservation easement, which he signed, was submitted to the tax assessor. However, it was never submitted to first the Conservation Board, which is the process, so that they could look at it and determine if the property is worthy of preservation or protection. And then that recommendation goes to the town board, and with the easement has a public hearing, which is required by state law. And then once that occurs, the easement gets recorded, and then the tax assessor can reduce the taxes accordingly. For some reason, this conservation easement was given to the tax assessor, and they gave a tax abatement. The conservation easement that is in the assessor's office is there signed by the landowner, but not signed by the town, and clearly had a signature place for the town. Interestingly, 10 years went by. It was a term for 10 years. So 2008 all the way to 2018. And the owner had actually passed away, and his spouse went in to see if the town would extend it. And interestingly, there's correspondence from the Conservation Board, the Environment Division. Marty Shea actually sent a letter to the applicant saying, if you want to extend it, he outlined the entire process I just described under the code. If you want to do this, just make an application to the Conservation Board, we'll look at it and we'll make a recommendation to the town board. Nothing occurred. However,
Still get
tax assessor got the tax abatement. So you and I as taxpayers wonder, like, you know, how many of these are out there, and what, you know, there's a process, and there's a, you know, to make sure that this occurs so that people are properly paying their taxes. Nonetheless, there is no easement, and your Conservation Board referral actually recognized that and said it had expired nonetheless. But I just add that for further color here. So there's no encumbrance, and actually came to our attention after the public hearing because there was also a notation in the town GIS. It doesn't come up automatically, but there was a notation that there was some easement, which,
Right.
you know, I did a title search. There's no easement of record. So where is this and what was it? And this is what prompted me to get all this information through Freedom of Information and records, and which I submitted to the staff. So that's that. The last comment I had was with respect to fire hydrants. As was indicated at the hearing, one of the things that the neighbors recognized that we weren't proposing the same 50-foot buffers that were imposed on their lots. So, of course, my client went back, has no issue with that. We submitted a map showing that. At the same time, we submitted a map that actually shows there was actually 5 fire cisterns recommended by the Sag Harbor Fire District, which are still there and functioning, provide the water source necessary for fire protection. There's 3 immediately across the street from these 4 lots. So I suspect that there's not going to be any further recommendations from Sag Harbor Fire District. We do have an availability letter which we submitted from the Water Authority, which is what we need from the Health Department, our preliminary discussions with the Health Department. The public waters on Noyak Road, well 2,000 to 3,000, 2,500 or 33,000 feet from, which is well beyond a reasonable distance to extend. So with that, if you could
So the
authorize
driveways
Anthony
are
with these
usually,
changes, I
I
would
can take that.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not a heavily trafficked road, I think each one of those lots should have a driveway.
It's not, I've been on the road.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
I'd rather
I-
put it in and take it out
Yeah.
than forget about putting it
I
in, so.
have friends who live there, so.
So what I'm gonna say is,
Where are you now?
just on page 4, I'll fix the park requirement.
We
He's right.
do not have this in writing anywhere.
We don't have an
It's not
answer.
in the packet. We're following.
We're-
Oh, I had sent it to you guys,
Yes, but
in
it's
a
not,
separate email,
but
yeah.
it's not in the packet. I mean, I read it, but it's not here to refer.
I apologize for that, I thought that, was in
So,
the previous
so
email.
you need to give us more than like a number to tell us what you're
I'm
gonna
going
talk
to, the
about.
park, I'm gonna fix the park requirement to reflect the trail, because we do that with the dedication of open space in satisfaction of the park requirement. On the recommendations, number 1, I'm gonna fix it to say that the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the open space requirements within the respective zones. And then I'm going to eliminate the common driveway thing. And I'm gonna add the archaeological report.
So
That's it.
in the
And the
ori-
fire department, and some recommendation from the fire department.
Yeah, and that could subject to change if the project goes
Yeah.
forward.
With the park requirement, I don't remember, were you requesting that they pay for it?
I was initially,
Okay,
I just
all
sort
right.
of did that.
I wanna
It's a matter of
understand
just
what
doing
we're
it, then it was
eliminating.
correct. When we do trails and open space dedication,
Yeah,
it's satisfying.
we'll eliminate that. Okay. So are we gonna see this?
We'll adopt that, yeah.
All right, we're adopting it without seeing it.
Yeah, but with the minor changes.
Will you resubmit it to us so
Yeah,
that we can
I'll give it
have
to you first thing Monday. I'm not here tomorrow.
Okay. Motion by Dennis, second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Okay.
Let me make
Alice
this.
Clifton.
Alice Clifton. Let me just make this nice and simple for the board. Here we have just a lot line change. This is a property in Watermill. Not part of a subdivision, just 2 lots, described properties. You'll see the back lot here has a flag strip that comes down to Strong's Lane. However, there is a common driveway serving both properties. It's sitting on this side of the property though, and it's a legal description, right? It's just a filed legal document. So all the applicant is doing here is trying to switch the flag strip to go over where the access easement actually is located. That's really the nature of this application. Am I right, Dave?
I just add that the ownership
Can
of the
you just
easement.
identify
Oh,
yourself,
sorry,
David?
David Gilmartin of Greenberg Chartered for the applicant. The ownership of the flag lot will go to the rear lot.
That's right.
So it controls access. It's not the
That's right, and and it does say that in the resolution. But that's the gist of this application, is switching this flag strip to this side of the property, and then new deeds accordingly. So,
Is there a public hearing required?
We have.
we had one.
Oh, we had
We did, so, yeah,
Very
you can
quick.
see here.
Quick one?
Yeah, it was. So you see, the map just shows the switch there.
So you want to go through the,
Yeah, look,
Resolution?
I did some referrals. We didn't get many comments back, actually, obviously, for this one, because that's just the way it goes on a simple application like this. But I would just say, I'll go to the resolve part that approves the land transfer, and I have to fix the name of the application here. This was a copy and paste job. And it's subject to the Department of Health Services approval for the lot line change. All legal documents which affect the property shall be submitted to the planning board. Submission of the 3 deeds prior to the recording. Execution of the deeds. One is the transfer deed, executing the land transfer, and 2 confirmatory deeds for the new properties. And then mortgage consent, title certification, town attorney approval of the legal documents, and then submission of 10 copies of the transfer map for signature.
David, anything, any
It's
comments?
just changing the name of the applicant.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
It's not 50 Shades of Construction, right?
Other than that, it's fine.
Any questions from the board? Okay, so can we adopt this resolution? Motion by George, second by Gloria, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Thank you,
Thank you.
David.
Have a good afternoon.
You too.
See you.
So just, I have number 5, which is next, but before we do number 5, we have to do number 14. It's the same application, but we gotta do the secret determination before we can do the completeness. So let's just go to 14. Known as Howard Irrevocable Living Trust. We looked at this a while ago, the existing
Page 105.
site with, looks like there's some commercial buildings with some, maybe some retail office uses. This is on Noyak Road in Noyak.
Give us a second to find it, Anthony.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, it's not in the,
Yes, here we go.
I got it.
On page 105.
okay, sorry about that. And this is a village business zone piece of property. All the structures are existing. There's a garage in the back, properly CO'd. This application, yes.
Can you expand it so we
Sure.
can see it?
Is that the deli? I think it's the deli.
Yes, I think you're right, actually.
It's deli.
Yeah.
What is it?
And then there's an existing garage in the back, which is properly CO'd. This application is really just to legalize the apartment on the second floor. That's what this whole application is, which is a special exception use in the village business zoning district. So that's what happened here. This was here about a year ago. We deemed the application incomplete. The engineer wanted some stuff done on this property. So actually, we're going to get new drainage, new septic, and a redoing of this parking lot, as a matter of fact, as part of the application. And they had to make changes to show all the new drainage and everything else for the engineer.
Get an IA system.
IA system and all the rest of it. So that's why we were waiting for completeness. They've submitted the application and now the engineer signed off, but we have to do the secret in this case. Because it's a commercial site plan, unlisted, we applicant just submits a short form, typically in a case like this. You would think it was type 2? Is that-
I don't know.
The reason is it because it's a
It's in
special
the
exception
APOD.
It is APOD.
So this is for what?
The apartment, Howard Irrevocable Trust.
It's an apartment, so,
Well, you know
in
what?
an existing building,
It's an
right?
existing building.
And it's not, doesn't require variances? Yeah, it's a type 2.
Why not?
I don't have a problem with that. I just, they gave me
Yeah,
the.
because it's on a type 2 list,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And what is this property?
This
It's
is.
a deli on Noyak Road. You know, there's a liquor store in the deli.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
So the garage behind there has an apartment in there.
Got
That's
it.
the thing they legalized. So I'll fix it then to say that it's a type 2 action.
So you just have to do what you do, completeness?
Now we're just going to do the completeness. So the applicant submitted everything for the engineer. The engineer gave me a memo saying everything's in order. So I was just going to recommend deeming the site plan complete and scheduling the hearing for January 12th.
So do we have two actions?
We don't need to do the secret. It's a type 2 action.
Okay, I sort of missed that because I,
Okay, so deeming is complete and scheduling a public hearing for January 12th. Motion by Gloria, second by
second.
Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor. First one in January, yes?
Yeah, we have a few that night.
Okay. Then you're going back to,
So we're doing Pasanelli. The applicant's not here, right? I think that's the next one I have.
what happens if 3-5
By
months?
3-5 Montauk.
Oh, yes, sorry, this is my next one. So 3-5 Montauk is a unlisted action. It's before the zoning board of appeals. This is for an addition to an existing car dealership. So, to my projects. This would be just to assume lead agency. This is page 64. The ZBA relinquished lead agency to the planning board. In our reports to the ZBA, you had said you preferred to be lead agency. I don't think there's a lot of issues with this, but I'll prepare it for the next meeting on the 15th. So this simple action is to assume lead agency.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
you don't need any input for the report?
This is just to assume lead agency.
Okay.
Oh, yes, if you'd like some environmental issues related to it for the next meeting, but it's going to be a short form. I've identified no significant issues. So I'm recommending a negative declaration, but if anybody takes a peek at it and has any issues,
Okay.
we can discuss it. Okay?
So, assuming lead agency, motion by Dennis, second
Second.
by Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
And now it's Pasanelli, that's my
Page
next one.
71.
Page 71. This one is action deadline for the next meeting.
Okay, if we can have some maps up there.
Show this is my staff report. This is the map. So we worked on this hard, in detail. Let me just zoom in a little bit. This was the one with the conditioned neg deck with the 5 conditions related to the property. One of them was the buffers, so we got an additional buffer, the 100-foot on the east side, and then the 25 to the north side, sort of a wildlife corridor that was part of the process. Another condition is related to the clearing being limited to 9.6 acres on the property. Another one was not to have any access to Old Country Road is to the north. We described that the only access is over the railroad tracks on an easement over the existing car.
Junkyard.
Junkyard, yes, exactly. So that was part of the condition. I'd have to look at the rest of it to see what the conditions
Have
were.
we taken a look at that easement?
Yes, we have a copy of the easement. It's actually spelled out right in their deed, so we have a copy of that. Correct. So the clearing would have to be clearing only in the window for the long-eared bats because of the DEC, yes.
Is that a town road? That exit, was it Jagger? Is that what it's called?
Jagger to the south, you mean?
The access into the farm.
Yeah, that's is Jagger, yeah.
Yeah, is that
It's
a
town.
private road or is it town?
I'm pretty sure I think it's town, but let me take a peek at it.
It hardly looks like a road. It looks more almost like a
Driveway, right?
Yeah.
I've been back there once to go to the junkyard. But yeah, I'll take a peek.
But the railroad is then on the other side.
No, I can check. I have the GIS open. Hold on a second. Actually, it's private.
It's private.
Yeah, the green, right? Light green means private? Yeah.
It does,
Yeah.
Used to.
Mhm. You can see the actual access there.
But we did discuss, and they, the railroad or whoever it is, did put in the grade crossing, the safety lights and the barriers and everything, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'm gonna prepare a site plan approval for the next meeting.
What about the, there was a very distinct specification that this is for sunflower, this is a flower farm.
Well, they're representing it's a flower farm, but it's a
Okay.
farm, so if they change it to be broccoli or something else, that would be nothing you'd be looking at.
But no other restriction in terms of, because there was some concern about that.
Right.
You know,
But farming is a protected right in
and
the
and
state.
marijuana is also now protected?
It's right now not under Ag and Markets law.
It's not. Okay, so,
Doesn't mean it can't be or won't be, but right now, there's really nothing we can do about it.
I'm sorry, you're probably gonna.
okay. Because you had concern about that.
Okay, so there's no action. The action deadline is next meeting, so anything in the meantime,
Well, I mean,
let me know.
if that is a concern, can we be more restrictive
I
and just
don't,
state
what
that, or
Christine
no?
is saying is
No,
that we
that's
can't,
exactly-
although
If
it's
it's
not
in
under
the
Ags and
Sorry,
Markets.
the Ag and Markets law sits over town law.
Right.
So whatever, we are bound by what that says. We cannot preempt the state in that area.
But they have not included that in their.
As I understand it, right now, the state of law, they have not yet included that within Ag and Markets law. It's not to say that they may not at some point, but right now it's not.
It's
Um,
FDA, or does anyone have to permit it right now, or no?
For marijuana sales,
For growth, yeah.
for growth, I think that falls under the new licensing law
Right,
that they're
okay.
giving out, so, but.
And the state gave out 6 or 7, this was not included, nor was the Falkowski.
I don't think it was, but I also think
No.
they didn't qualify for some, I'd have to ask Janice, but there was some ag district qualification that they did not qualify for under
That was
the
for
county.
timber, that was
That's right.
for the timber. They didn't qualify for that.
So,
So it would go through its own review process as a protection, just to ease the concern.
I don't know. This is new
potentially.
if
territory.
it ends up being legislatively allowed under Ag and Markets law in the same manner as all other farming operations, and I'm not suggesting that
Then
it
it could
is or
be.
would be,
Yeah.
then it would share the same protections afforded
Right.
by that to other
Right.
crops, but I don't, it's right now, it's kind of in a,
But then
You don't know.
it would be incumbent upon the state to set the criteria for the farms. In other words, you know,
You would
buffer
hope.
space between residential,
You would hope that, but I don't know.
Kind of like grapes.
if it's carte blanche, it's a big problem.
Could be, yeah. I don't know.
Okay, so there's no action on this. We have just a few more. We're holding our time, okay? Jeffrey
my next one
Delandro
is
is page
Delandro.
82.
The applicant's representative is here. Again, this is to get some feedback. The action deadline is at the next meeting. This is a proposed prefab building for special trade contractors along Spionk Riverhead Road. It's LI 40 zoning district. It is for a 10,000 square foot building. So the one, this is the property to the
Page
south.
84.
Sorry, page 82 is the, 84 is the
There's a report.
the reports, 82 is the aerial, 83 is the site plan, as you can see. And it's gonna be very similar to the one to the north here, actually, very, very close. So, this is a permitted use, in the zoning district. I really have not huge issues with this. They're meeting the Pine Barrens and the town APOD regulations. We'd encourage any native vegetation, that's number one. Two is, the site remains naturally vegetated at the time. And outdoor storage proposed, they may want to show, you can see how this probably had no outdoor storage, but we started to make some outdoor storage with the property. So if they are proposing any at this time, they should probably plan for it initially. So that's a possibility. Special exception, obviously town engineer, number 5. SECRA, it is an unlisted action because they're clearing in the APOD and Pine Barrens, so that makes them unlisted. So we'll have that process. Architecture and facades, it's a pretty standard prefab building. I'm sorry, I don't have the floor plans, but if you want to see them, the elevations, but it's pretty standard prefab building.
I just have a question.
Sure.
This is the Spionk Plume is in this area?
Correct.
It is,
It
so
is.
it is, so they would have no basement, that would be part of the requirements, and that's so far, there's been no other special provisions.
Monitoring well, wasn't there some monitoring wells required
Down
in
the
some of
road.
the other one?
Right down the road there is,
Mhm.
yeah, about a quarter mile
Mhm.
to the south. And there's a brand new water main that goes through there now, and
Oh, good.
all those buildings were able
They
to
hook up to
tap
that?
into
Okay.
some water.
And clearing, it's APOD and it's Central Pine Barrens, so what's the clearing?
50% for us, we're more restrictive, the Pine Barrens would be 65%, but they're not proposing to go over our restriction, which is 50% this time. That's number one. So obviously a dumpster, parking needs to be met, the sanitary system, we have to be doing IAs, mechanical screens, lighting conformance, and I do mention the speed up the plume at the end. So I'm sorry, there's no testing wells, this was a cut and paste from another project. There's no testing wells on site, so I'll make this a provision.
Claire,
Also
did we
mention
discuss the
basement.
cumulative impact of the traffic on that road? The corner of Old Country Road and Spionk Riverhead Road, that junction there, the sight lines are terrible. And there's a stop sign on Spionk Riverhead Road, but it becomes, it gets all choked up with people trying to make lefts and the like, and I've been around there an awful lot, and it's pretty dangerous. And I know you're talking a county to town, a connection there. Is there any way we can refer to the county to take a look? As we build that area, more of these are going up, more cars there. Can we refer to the county to take a look at, doing something there, either more stop signs, light or something?
That's funny. We do referrals to the county, though I'm not quite sure if it's a town maintains county road or a county maintained road. I'd have to double check
Yeah,
that.
the intersection is town and county.
Yeah.
Am I right on that, Tom?
I think that's correct.
Spionk Riverhead is county and Old Country is town, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So generally, the county would control the intersection.
The county, yeah. It's pretty pretty scary over there.
Yeah, and it's been more actively used as like a cut through. The road is not historically been used.
Yeah, and it's not well lit either, so when you're heading south and, you know, people traveling at 55 miles an hour on that road, you know, that intersection comes up on you quick, it's dark. And sometimes, you know, not me, but, but,
Never.
no, you know what I mean, but you know how people drive, and I would love to see something happen there. Either
Can't we just
always
put an
Of
referral?
a good way, not
No,
a
no,
bad
no,
way.
yeah.
Referral to the county,
Al-
so I'll
always-
make sure there's.
We'll do a referral to the county.
Yeah.
Claire, I don't know if this is important, but the agenda does not have the correct description.
You have,
It's-
you have
it's-
Pozzanelli.
Yeah, it's
And then-
Pozzanelli twice.
Yeah, we're not proposing a flower farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it just decides to fill it in anything it wants sometimes. So I will change that.
Claire,
Sorry
with
about that.
regard to the county, I think a referral of the site plan will not ask them, you know, will not activate them to look at the intersection.
No.
Generally, what we used to do, either myself, Jenna and I would do it, would be a referral or request to the county traffic safety office to look at a particular intersection. So if you sent this to them, I'd certainly want to make the link that the reason we're sending you to this is, or sending this to you is because we're concerned about that intersection.
I thought we were doing a referral outside of this particular application. You're sending this application? Right.
I think the referral is going to be made outside the gamut of
Okay,
this
right.
application. It's going to probably come from the town engineer to request, just to look at.
That would be
at
the
concerns.
better way to do it.
My,
Right.
my thought, my thought with that would be, it is SECRA, so we could refer it to the county at the time of SECRA and do a coordinated review. And then specifically ask that question. But that's, I'm sure the applicant has some comments on this.
Do you?
So I appreciate the issue, but frankly, that's a town issue.
Wayne,
It's a-
just,
Wayne
identify
Bruin,
yourself.
O'Shea, Marcinsigan and Bruin on behalf of Jeff DeLandro. This property is 3,900 plus feet north of the intersection of Old Country Road, which is a county road, and Spionk Riverhead Road, which is a town road. So I agree with Mr. Neely that if you send a referral to the county, number one, under seeker, they're gonna come back and say, we have no jurisdiction over this at all, it's on a town road.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, I would think it would either come from the town transportation department, or more importantly, the superintendent of the highways should be the one that should be talking to the county to figure out what they should do at their intersection. And I think that's come up many places, for example, Bridgehampton.
Right,
You got
right.
the
I think that
turnpike and so on, and Lumber Lane and, or Butter Lane, or whatever it is. And
I think
all-
the, you know, with the traffic safety office not, you know, really being operational these days, I think it's fallen upon the town engineer to put in these kind of requests, so.
So do you want, Craig and Tom, the board, do you want to have this be a separate issue where you kind of do a resolution, putting them on notice, you've seen these site plans?
Yeah, I don't think we should-
And anecdotally, you're seeing that that intersection may not be working.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to
Yes.
burden this application
Right.
with that issue,
Right.
but the cumulative
Appreciate it.
effect of these, it should be addressed at some point.
Okay, one more thing to do this. Okay.
You're welcome.
Good.
It's called job security.
Yes, exactly.
I have no issues with anything that you've identified. As far as the plume is concerned, this is directly across to the west of the old BB&S, and the plume is actually to the south. Nonetheless, you know, we got to get through the health department, and we'll do
Yes.
whatever they require. I think the
Do
building.
you have to do the basements, no basements, right?
I-
Probably in this case, or no?
I don't remember. I put a
Okay.
note here for me to check that anyway, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
the building to the north is on slab, so I think they're trying to do the same thing, so.
Yeah, okay, on slab, okay, that sounds good. I'm just gonna update this for the next meeting, again, any little comments? There's no action with this, we extended it at the last meeting, so, okay? And my next one is Shinnecock Shores, the applicant's representative is here. You want one? Joe, so the action, in this case, the action, the comment period is still open, but the deadline is next meeting, so This is a proposal to build a maintenance building on the property, which also will have a small office for the HOA on the property. So I may have not gotten the use of the building quite right on this, so we'll talk about that issue. It is for a 1,622 square foot first floor maintenance building with a second floor unfinished attic for storage on a 1.5 acre property. There's also the property where it has a playground for the kids and stuff like that. There's an existing trailer that's going to be removed from the property. So this is the proposal. And the tradition, I don't have the elevations, but I can grab them if you want them. They're very traditional residential looking. The parking, the garage is in the back. It does look very, very nice. So did you want me to pull that up?
It had a cupola.
It had a cupola. Did you want me to pull that up, or you're good with that? It just never fit into the packet. It was
Did you get this letter that was sent to us?
I just
From
got.
Richard Warren?
I just got that. Yes.
Okay, because there's been no mention anywhere about the spoil that has been dredged that goes onto this property.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
that's-
recommend that this letter be read thoroughly, and you might want to include some detail in the report.
I will. That letter just came in, and this report came to you on Friday, so that's why it was just all those comments
Okay.
were pending. So.
Yeah, that seemed to be a fairly challenging concern of this neighbor.
Community, yeah.
Mhm. Joe, do you want to just clarify the use, or identify yourself and clarify the use?
Hi, Joe Lombardi from the Rayner Group, representing Shinnecock Shores. The proposed building is simply to be used for the maintenance, well, as an office for the maintenance of a community that has 264 lots. 262 of them are developed. Right now, they've been working out of homes when they have meetings, and they have a 15-member board when they have a meeting, which is 5 to 7 times a year. They either go to a nearby church or the East Quogue Fire Department, and they like to be able to do something on site. As far as records, this community has existed for close to 70 years, so they've accumulated a lot of records. They're stored in 2 different facilities, one in Hampton Bays, one in Southampton. They'd like to get everything on site so that they can manage the community a little bit more effectively. So that's the use that's being proposed for the
So
building.
it's really multi-purpose, right? It's storage, it's a meeting room, it's an office, it's files.
Right.
It's all of those uses. And what's the square footage?
Yes, 1,622 on the first floor, which is the storage for vehicles, the office, little office space, this, and then other storage. I think then the second floor is entirely storage. It's unfinished.
Joe, did you read the letter that Rick Warren sent?
I haven't seen that letter yet.
Okay.
I heard that it was on its way, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, it talks about, the dredging.
Of the lagoons.
Of the lagoons.
I didn't know we had
Right.
lagoons.
And the spoil that goes into it. And,
Well, at the hearing, Skip Heaney, who is the president of the Shinnecock Shores Association, brought that subject up. And at one point, there was a major dredging operation that was done on these lagoons. I guess because it only has one opening,
right,
it's a
it gets
lagoon.
the silt builds up, yeah.
But they've since, and at that time, they used this site to place the spoil, and then once it drained or dried out, they carted it away. They've retained, they knew that this letter was on its way. They retained First Coastal to take a look at the lagoons. And since that project was undertaken, there's just one small area, which is about 400 cubic yards, where they may have to do some additional dredging at some point in the future, but it's not a major dredging. The other thing that's happened over time is a lot of these lagoons, the people who had frontage on them have put bulkheads up, so they're not silting in, once they did that one major project, that seems to have taken care of things.
So is there still space on this parcel if spoil has to
Yes.
be? There is, okay, so I think we should include something like that in the report.
The property remains be able
Right.
to accommodate dredge spoil at times.
Here's the letter, Joe. You can have
Thank
that
you.
copy.
So, are there any other questions about the use of the property?
No,
Or
I
the
think that's
proposed
pretty
use?
straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say, it seemed like the people who came to speak at the public hearing had no clue as to what was going on. So I would suggest that communication in the community might be better.
They're working on it.
Good. Okay, what's our action here?
No action. I'm
No
going to
action.
update it with the comments, and then
Okay.
we'll adopt it for the next meeting.
Great, thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. See you next
Okay,
week.
thank you. We have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 more items to do
In
in
10
a very
minutes.
short period of time, so.
So the
Riverhead
next-
Estates,
Yeah, next one, it is Wayne Bruin, the applicant. Resolution. Yes, so this is a development right, so it is 20,000 square feet. It is located in the R40 zoning district, so in order to have a full development right, you need to transfer from another parcel up to the 20,000 square feet, and it is being done from another parcel, which I could pull up if you wanted it. This is the proposal for the house, and this is the parcel, which is the sending parcel. So it is all described in the application, and I have conditions related to that. And I spoke to Jackie, so I could get all the details of how to do this. So now I'm an expert at this.
that's on the record, that's on the record.
That
Pull the
is,
short
I
straw.
am the expert now.
You pull the short straw.
Though Wade probably doesn't think I did a good job, but we'll see. But we'll talk about the conditions. He had some comments for them, so we can talk about those.
Okay, let's,
And so my conditions are the title certifications, which he says he's provided. We want to make sure there's a development rights search to make sure that none of the rights have taken off of that parcel that is descending. And a single and separate variance search to make sure it wasn't merged with a parcel at one time since 1977. So that is a requirement. He submitted the draft development rights certification, transfer declaration, which we can give to the town attorney once this is approved. What I'm saying is either a conservation easement on the sending parcel, which has wetlands on it, or it is actually deeded to the town of Southampton, which is an easy way to make sure it's never developed in the future.
Right, right.
A covenant, I just don't think in this case is sufficient. It would be different if it was a borderline parcel that maybe could be developed, but in this case, it's full of wetlands. It's not one that we would ever want to see developed in the future.
So
So this would
outright
ensure it.
deeding, right.
This would ensure it.
Great.
So town attorney approval, compliance with clearing restrictions, and application of road review because it's private roads. So those are typical conditions.
Wayne?
Good afternoon, Wayne Bruin on behalf of Justin Soloff and his companies related to this. Interesting, about a year ago, Mr. Soloff came to my office because the building department had given him a denial letter on his building parcel saying he needed variances. Just typical variances, single and separate, he wasn't meeting setbacks and the like. Interestingly, the building inspector didn't recognize that this isn't an old file map. Didn't say he needed any approval of the planning board under the old file map regulations. So I looked at it, because under the old file map regulations, he doesn't need any zoning relief. It's automatically provided for under the old file map regulations. But I did advise him that he had to go through the transfer of development rights process. And so then he undertook a search and found a parcel just to the south of here, which is in that same map as a sending parcel, was able to make a deal with the owner. We did a full title search, clear, and we submitted an application in June to do this. We thought this is something that you're trying to promote is somebody following the TDR process. And here we are several months later, and I appreciate Claire being sort of new at this and consulting with Jackie to get it on. The one condition, so normally when you do a transfer declaration, if you read the transfer declaration, it says, here's my receiving parcel and here's my sending parcel, and you're sending it pursuant to the regulations. And, oh, by the way, the sending parcel can no longer be developed, and it has to remain in its natural state. And that's your typical declaration of covenants, and that's what gets indexed against both properties. So here you're recognizing that. We actually submitted the draft in your normal form that you constantly do, but then you're adding this additional requirement. And my concern about the additional requirement,
Which one?
the conservation easement or the deed, either way, that's a document that isn't the typical declaration. It requires town board approval, review, public hearing, and acceptance. So that will add undoubtedly 2 or 3 months to this process, which he's just been waiting here to be able to get back to the building department to get his building permit based on the transfer of rights here.
Do it prior to CO?
Well, can I just ask a question? Is this a map that the town has opened?
Yes.
Yes.
Riverhead
I
Estates.
double checked. It's Riverhead Estates.
Okay, so that's important too.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's in there. It does
Okay.
reference that in the resolution.
And
And so we're building on an approved development parcel subject to the rights, and it's 100% full rights, you know,
Same
half an acre
district?
here, and he needs a half acre, and the process there. I'm okay, because one of the questions, and you might remember the expert on this, Mr. Gaza, the question is, what does the landowner do with the residual property? Once I've transferred my rights off of that, what do we do with that? Well, Joe used to accumulate all these and then once a year come to the town and say, hey, I'd like to donate all my residual, because he still pays $2 in taxes because it's restricted, you can't develop, but he still owns them and has to pay insurance and taxes and so on. So he would accumulate them all and then donate the underlying fee title to the town.
right.
But there's no requirement to do that. And
Well,
so
that-
there are a lot, but whether it's a conservation easement or a covenant, it's still, and you know, it's there. I mean, ultimately, if we deed it to the town, it's out of my guy's hands, and he doesn't really want it, and I will recommend that to him. But I just think
Right,
that
but
either, you know, we're doing a TDR declaration and a conservation easement, which say the same thing. My guy still owns the property. It's just that this other condition you're asking for will delay matters.
Well,
I mean, I can't go from here. I can get these documents, they're all here, I can get something done, and I can get back to the building department to get a building permit, you know, shortly, as opposed to waiting until, so if the condition is subsequent, like a CO, I think I can live with that.
Perfect. I'll say that. Prior to CO.
Yeah,
I like that.
and I mean, and certainly Christine can.
And it could be
council can look at it.
dedication or
Dedicated
an
to the
Or the
town.
easement. Or the easement.
But
Yep.
there has to be a resolution, you know. that's-
Yes, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Okay,
Thank you.
If everybody's comfortable with that, I'll just add that and you can adopt it.
okay. Motion to adopt by Dennis, second by Kate, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Thank you. Okay, ZBA referral.
Yeah, it's not. This will be 2 seconds. Sean Dunn, there's no action on this one. We did a conditional approval of a 2-lot subdivision. 1 lot is vacant, 1 lot had a existing single-family residence on it. Let me just pull it up real quick. And there's a flag lot to the back, single-family house in the front. The covenants and restrictions say all utility lines and such shall be installed underground for all lots. However, that's okay for the back lot, for the vacant lot. The front lot already has the existing utility lines above ground. We normally don't require that they take existing utility lines and bury them. So I just brought this here today to let you know that I've clarified with Christine and Kim Judd, who is drafting the legal documents, that we'll put a memo to the file that acknowledges that it was really meant just for the vacant lot and not for the already improved
Right.
lot. I just wanted to make sure we had that on the record here.
So there's no action?
No action.
Okay, so then we're moving on to Maple, the Maple residence?
Yep. Hold on, give me 1 second. Maple residents, I took this over, 13 Maple Avenue. This is in Hampton Bays. It's R20 zone. As you can see on the aerial, little corner of the property is in the HP zone, but we're treating it as a residential subdivision. Final application for a 2-lot subdivision was submitted not too long ago. You did a pre-app on this. This was Matt's. We deemed the application incomplete. It was missing some information. They have subsequently submitted the information. And in this particular case, I'm going to recommend on this final application that we deem it complete and waive the hearing with a 30-day written comment period on Maple Avenue.
Say that again, what you doing?
Maple Avenue to deem the final application complete.
Oh, complete?
And waive the hearing with a 30-day.
And waive the hearing.
With a 30-day.
Okay.
And Chicken Briar is off.
Yay.
Okay, so wait, but I need an action.
Oh, sorry about that.
So I need a motion by Dennis, second by
Second.
Gloria, and all in favor. Opposed, abstention, so number Maple residents is deeming it complete. Waive the public hearing, 30-day written comment period. Okay. Okay, pretty 3:30, right on the button.
Good job. Chair. I can imagine. You cracked the whip.
Some light reading.
Okay, so, but I just want everybody to know that the process today is that the secret findings have to be adopted, then the site plan, are you separating site plan subdivision, or are you doing it together?
Separate, so it's going to be
Okay, so
findings.
it's, so we can't adopt the site plan or subdivision without adopting the secret findings first. So that is the first order of business.
And would it be subdivision and then site plan?
Correct.
Because if we
Yes,
don't
subdivision,
have them
site.
pushed back together,
That's
you
right.
can't look at a site plan,
Right,
technically speaking.
yes.
100%.
So where is the site plan in here? I mean, the secret.
It's the third tab. And then in it, amended findings, so
Okay.
there's the statements, which is the report that we've been looking for, that analysis. And then with the pink tab, I believe,
This one?
that's the finding resolution for adoption.
Okay, and this is the document. Is it the same as what you sent out?
Yes, it's just been a lot of help from the town attorney and Janice to make it more readable, but it's the same information that we've been looking at this whole time. The additions to it is that yesterday, the Pine Barrens, in summary, said it was consistent with their decision. So I gave you that finalized resolution last night. I incorporated a statement, just some, but not even summarizing, quoted their determination
Right.
in here. So that's all the highlights that you see, which is starts
But
on
this-
page. Go
This
ahead.
document is the same as what you sent?
100%.
Okay, which I
Yes,
printed out.
exactly. So just starting on page 8, I had that conclusion. So I just said, and I'll say it once, but I'll just reference the pages. They're pointed out, the Central Pine Barrens Joint Policy and Planning Commission by resolution dated December 7th concluded that revised proposal does not materially alter the project and no significant adverse environmental impacts will occur as a result of the revised proposal, which requires additional secret review. So that's page 8 and 9. Just make sure I'm not skipping any pages.
Are you going to go through this from the beginning?
Oh, no.
No.
So that we discussed this at the last meeting.
You are not going to go through this. Some people
No.
may have questions
Well, they can, and I'm here
on
to
the
answer.
secret findings.
But anything that, this is the only change from the last meeting, and at the last meeting, I went through the 2 changes, which was the trails, and I added that information, and then the vegetation plan for the open space parcel, which they're going to submit a vegetation plan for approval at a later date. They're working on that plan. But otherwise, it's been the same document that's been submitted since October 27th. And so the only other thing on page 13, there's going to be an integrated turf management plan that's been submitted since October 26th, but the planning board's going to hire a consultant in a separate resolution in the future to approve that prior to a building permit being issued on the property for the golf course. So going through the documents, anything that's related to the Pine Barrens. Of course, this is a 41-page report. Again, with Pine Barrens on page 27. This is the clearing. It's consistent. That's what I was talking about in terms of this one I actually still have to change. I missed this one on page 27. So it's going to have the statements of the Pine Barrens conclusion on that. So
The same as what's on 36?
correct. And then on page 28 and 29, this is regarding the phasing plan. So the phasing plan, which has been a work in progress, Janice has looked at it. She thinks it's sufficient. We're just going to have the final sign off from the town engineer before the planning board reviews and approves it. And here again, the Central Pine Barrens Commission related to that. And then the revegetation, which I just discussed too on page 29. So there'll be an updated revegetation plan that'll be subject to planning board review and approval. And I'm just going through again. Anything highlighted?
36.
Yes, 36 is the Pine Barrens. Going further, and then at the end, the construction management plan that's been submitted, again, being updated and revised as we speak. The town engineer has been actively looking at this, and we're almost there, but not quite, so we're going to leave it as a condition of approval.
I have a couple things to say. So, as the newest member of the board, I've been really thinking about this application, and, you know, there's a lot of emotion associated with it and a lot of facts and so much information that has been prepared by the staff, by the applicant, and reviewed by all of us. And to take the emotion out of it and the opinion out of it, I went back to what is the responsibility of the planning board, right? So to authorize to review land use development applications to ensure that proposed activities are compatible with the town's comprehensive plan in conformance with the town code and regulations. And we've looked at a lot of those things and reviewed them. And then, since I'm the most recent person to join this group, I thought, what was the oath that I said in that office downstairs? And that it's that I will swear that I'll support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of New York. And so I started to look at the Constitution of the state of New York, and I realized that November 2nd, 2021, New York voters approved this amendment that would add number 19, which is each person's right to have clean air and water and to a healthful environment. And so then I was like, all right, well, what is the tool that we use to defend that basic human right that's now been codified into the Constitution of New York State? Well, SECRA, right? And from the beginning, I have had a discomfort with the procedure, and that discomfort comes from not the merit of the project, but more the procedure that's been taken. And I started to look then at the draft resolution for the site plan conditional approval. And on there, you know, it's stating the project was classified as a type 1 action. The proposed action underwent SECRA under the town board as the lead agency. And I recognize the things that we've gone through with Christine as our counsel, stating the B. Lang report, and that the town planning board did approve the B. Lang report as not requiring an additional study of the project. But when you look at the flow chart of how the procedure is supposed to go, and identifying that the law, state environmental quality review law, is our only defense to defend what is now identified, after all that happened, as a basic human right in the state of New York. I'm just really uncomfortable approving any kind of finding statement that comes out of result of the process that we've taken, because I don't think that we did it right. And I think it's important for this board to consider that precedent, because that law is what we have. That procedure is what we have to take a hard look, to do our jobs. So I don't feel like I can approve the finding statement, and I feel badly about that because so much work has been done on it.
Well, so it's a problem with the process?
Correct. So
Do you
it's
not
like
think there was the hard look? That's the question I have for you.
the process.
No, the hard look.
And
The hard
that's-
look.
Listen
All the
to-
statements which you have gotten through the
Listen,
thing.
because it's not personal about what has been done, and I'm
No,
acknowledging
no, I'm
that.
just saying that's a standard.
There has been a hard look.
Okay.
The procedure of having a lead agency look at a project independently of what has happened in the past, and having that lead agency coordinate a review, not of things that have happened in the past, of what is right in front of us. And we've seen that throughout this process, that we're going to different footnotes of different reports that have been created in the past. It's not how the process is supposed to go. It's supposed to be very straightforward right in front of us. And I'm shaking because I feel that it's important to say it, but I know it's not the popular opinion. But I came onto this board, I said I would do the job. I sat with people who probably were in favor of this project, and I looked them in the eye and I said, I will do my best to do what I said I would do. And that's what I'm doing right now. And it sucks because I know that everyone has put a lot of effort into this, but the action that occurred happened before I was here, and I need to stand up and say, I don't think it's right.
And if there is an issue with respect to anything legal, which your objection appears to be based on a legal conclusion that you've drawn, I'm not going to debate that publicly. Should you wish to do so, we can go into executive session. I obviously do not agree with your legal opinion, but I'm not going to do that legally, so.
Well, we haven't come to a vote yet.
Right.
But
You're raising legal issues
Yeah, yeah.
that are going to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
against this board as a whole, and I don't think that that's appropriate, and if we want to discuss it any further, we should go inside.
Well, I think we have to vote on the secret finding.
Yes.
I also have a statement. Kate's made a statement. Clearly, she can't support secret. So let's go down the board and see. So,
But if I could just caution
Yes.
you, it's okay that you don't support it, and it's okay that you state your reasons, but it's not okay to say that there is a legal problem with it, because that taints the vote of every other board member. So therefore, if you would like to have a discussion on the legal merits of this, my recommendation as your attorney would be to go into an executive session, so we can do that, and then you can voice your objections, other than the legal issues, to this, because you're tainting the other votes, and that's not
well,
appropriate.
but that's speculation.
Well, no, I just heard it, it's a
I just
fact.
heard it on the record.
Is your issue a legal issue or one of process? I mean, I think you clearly
It's one of
stated it.
process
Yeah.
that I think we just need to take a moment to consider that.
Then let's go into executive session and discuss that.
I'm fine with that.
Because I'm new, and I'm feeling uncomfortable with that part, and maybe it does need to be discussed.
Okay, if we're gonna go into executive session, you'll have to leave the room. Sorry. Thanks.
So you need a vote.
You don't want to make them leave the room, you can
We
motion,
can-
wait, please.
I'll make
hold
a
on.
motion
If you
to
want to
go.
make a motion to go into executive session, on a second, you can,
Let's just see it's
we can go
available.
into another room rather than making everybody else.
Sorry,
leave.
Claire, sorry.
No, no.
Let's go to the intent
That means you guys are, there's a room, but I'm.
Well, even if people are there, we can go to the town attorney's office.
We can go
I'm
to
trying
town
to see if there's
attorney's
other
office.
rooms so that not everybody in the audience has to leave.
Yeah, that way the
I
audience
have
can
to
sit.
I'm sorry,
I have to stop the recording.
I can't.
Exactly.
There's nothing I can do.
You
about
would
that.
stop the recording.
Yeah, you would stop the recording.
Yes, of course.
Once we take them up.
So, I'm sorry, there was a motion.
I'm
Is there a second?
Second by George, all in favor, seven in favor. All right, we're going to leave. Findings, report, and I'm gonna start with Kate. I think you heard Kate, so
I'm a no.
you're a no. Craig?
I'm a yes.
Wait, hold on a second. Motion to approve, or, and then you have a second?
Oh, yes, okay, so a motion
I'll
is
make
moved by
motion.
Dennis and second by Craig, all in favor?
And then you want
No.
Once the motion approved, then you
Once
can-
the
then you can
motion
vote
is
for it.
approved, then a vote no, yes. Gloria?
I'm a no, for several reasons. I really feel that the applicant has to go back to the ZBA. Their approval was very, very specific. I don't understand completely how the maintenance facility is now morphed into a much larger facility without understanding whether or not that complies with what ZBA said. And probably more importantly, the bathrooms on the golf course have now doubled and tripled in size. And in my opinion, they're actually being used for more than just a bathroom. They have these large overhangs, which will enable, in a sense, a separate use for protection from the elements. And so that's my first concern. My second is I've been asking for weeks now about core versus compatible growth areas, and I haven't seen that stated clearly, nor stated with the delineation between what was developed in the compatible growth area versus the prime area. And so the percentages, I don't know how appropriate they are between the two separate uses. As somewhat of an aside, the numbers in all three reports don't foot, they don't match each other all the time, and the math doesn't work. So I'm questioning that analysis in general. I have concerns about the fertigation. It is an unproven way of doing things. There's analysis being done that's suggesting a really positive thing, which would be great if it works. But going back to the old Gobler report from the PDD, he had lots of questions and really felt we should be looking at the nitrogen load without the fertilizer. I think those are my bigger issues, so I'm a no.
Thanks, Gloria. Tom?
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
I vote yes, and I just want to make a generic statement about this project. When I first came into town government in the early 90s, the Pine Barrens plan was being formulated. And I thought it was a terrific opportunity to acquaint myself with land use in general. I had the flexibility in my schedule, so I regularly traveled up to Great River, Hopog, and Riverhead, attended the meetings. And at every meeting, they had, behind the dais, they had a generic Pine Barrens plan. It involved a rectangle. Wayne was there, he probably remembers it. It was a rectangle, and it was a dotted line, and above the dotted line it said core, and below the dotted line it said compatible growth, and the dotted line was straddled with arrows pointing from the core to the compatible growth. And you never see those projects because typically the Pine Barrens plan involves transferring rights, like the old file map rights, from one parcel to another parcel. And when this project first surfaced at the town board level, I said, holy mackerel, this is the Pine Barrens. This is the plan, the generic plan I saw in the early 90s where, remember, this project straddles Sunrise Highway. I'm startled sometimes when I see the white posted signs. Like, whoa, okay, oh, that's the hill. So when this project first came to the town board, I said, holy mackerel, this is the Pine Barrens plan. This is the plan that I was looking at in the early 90s, and this is the essence. This project is really the essence of the Pine Barrens plan, where we're taking development out of the sensitive core, transferring to the compatible growth area. That's why the Pine Barrens Commission move forward and embrace it. They're the ones charged with monitoring and making sure the Pine Barrens plan, which it is an historic land use plan. If you look into it, it's historic nationwide. But that's why the Pine Barrens Commission moved forward and approved it. And they're the ones charged with administering the plan and make sure all projects are in conformance with it. So that's my 2 cents on this project. So yes, I am a yes on the finding statement.
So I vote no on the secret findings now, as I did in 2019 on the secret involved agency finding statement. The process throughout has been complicated and confusing, both by this board and the community, but for the record, I submit the following remarks pertinent to the project's environmental impacts. The intent of the Long Island Pine Barrens, Dennis just gave you his version, enacted in 1993 was to protect the very ecosystem in which this development is proposed. The development parcels lie in the compatible areas and in close proximity to the core acreage of the Pine Barrens. The New York State legislation was clear in purpose to protect the underlying aquifer and our supply of clean drinking water. Virtually all of Long Island's drinking water is drawn from aquifer, a single system of underground reservoirs. This led the federal EPA agency to designate our aquifer system as the nation's first sole source aquifer requiring special protection. The Long Island Pine Barrens overlies the source of the greatest quantity of the purest drinking water on Long Island. Development of this intensity, regardless of the preserved open space, not only is inconsistent with the law, but a threat to it and to us. The threat to water quality lies on the land above the aquifer. Any of 67 contaminants that rainwater contacts will be carried with it into the drinking water supply. Common contaminants include household sewage, fertilizers, pesticides used on lawns and gardens, farmland, and golf courses, solid waste including toxic chemicals, and the list goes on. The quality of our drinking water depends, therefore, on land use above it. I also have a comment on fertigation, because fertigation has been used in this application as a key ingredient in nitrogen and handling nitrogen. If you go to the and Gloria touched on this, in the FEIS of the Hills Review, Dr. Christopher Gobler submitted comments on the use of fertigation as a nitrogen offset. He stated that fertigation is a novel and innovative approach for groundwater remediation. While fertigation is used as a practice in some locations across the country, it's typically used for wastewater nitrogen and has yet to be used in this precise configuration. The first ever fertigation practice on Long Island was implemented in 2016 in Riverhead, and its efficacy has yet to be quantified. None of the individuals involved with PDD have ever been involved in a golf course fertigation project. While the concept shows promise, there are a series of unknowns and questions surrounding its application, and its use at the Hills, now known as Lewis Road, suggests that it should not be relied on as a quantitative nitrogen removal mechanism, but rather should or could be implemented as an experimental practice. It may or may not show promise. In addition, Gobler's report states that there are questions with regard to how turf will respond to constant dosing of nitrogen groundwater. The use of high nitrogen groundwater to irrigate turf could result in turf being fertilized sometimes during the year with turf leaching rates of nitrogen above 20%. So, in general, Gobler concludes that a suggested approach is to not include the fertigation approach, which it is in this application and in these secret documents, as it is problematic. It should be treated as experimental at the outset of the project. On a much, much smaller scale, there is no landscape plan in these secret documents. And the landscape plans, of course, rely to protect the local surface waters and wetlands from high nitrogen levels in groundwater within 200 feet of same. No such plans were included. So that was a long way of saying that I vote no. So we have 3 noes, we have 4 yeses, so the secret document is adopted. So we're moving on to subdivision.
So in your packet there, the very first tab is the subdivision staff report, obviously, which we went through previously, and then followed by the resolution. So I'll just wait till everybody gets to that resolution.
What page?
Well, the report went up to page 11, and it's right after the report, so. And it has the draft watermark on there. So it should be right after that, Jackie. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I have this, yes.
So, obviously, we handed out a draft at the last meeting. It's largely the same draft. Obviously, we've been working on it, making any edits with Christine's review and Janice's review. Obviously, this resolution is based on the staff report that was reviewed, which went through the history of the project, the secret history of the project, the referral comments, the public hearing comments, and then obviously any of the other review that we had with the applicant during the last several meetings. So the resolution is prepared like any other draft conditional approval resolution, whereas the first set of whereas is obviously the whole project history and description. I don't know that we want to go through all that.
No, but we can jump in if we have a question.
Yeah.
Because I have some questions.
Okay. Is it on the first page there?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it then.
And it goes to what Gloria's statement was. Can we not state the acreage here of how much is in the core, how much is in the compatible? And again, it's your
I'll look that up.
your fourth whereas also.
I have that.
Right? I mean, this is what we were.
Yeah, I mean, what I was trying to determine is in the compatible growth area, how much are we actually protecting? And is all of the protection for the entire project only in the core area?
Gotcha. I'm going to put the numbers in there, Gloria, as you requested, and the answer to that question is no. Preservation includes areas outside of the core as well.
Okay, because nowhere.
We're correct about that.
I mean,
right?
I spent an hour this morning going through every number in all 3 reports to find that information, and I could not.
And the percentage doesn't add up
Yeah,
either. I mean, I did the math.
Yeah, and that was.
That was your.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, in the site plan, 65% is supposedly protected, which is 433.7 acres. But if you do the math, dividing that by 607.87, the percent is 71.3.
65% is the open space.
That's.
Dedication, yes.
Dedication, open space. I thought the number was 73 or so, or in the mid-70s.
70, okay, so 65% is in separate lots for open space.
Wiped right off the project.
Right. It's all open space. Some of it's being revegetated. That's what we're getting the plan for, because it had activity at one point or another. And then 75% of the lots will be, of the natural vegetation that is existing, is going to be preserved. It doesn't equal 75% of the entire parcel, because it's only the existing natural vegetation. Some of it's already cleared on the property, so that's not included. That's what the code says. And so that's what they're meeting, is 75% of the existing natural vegetation, which
Should
is a
we say
reduced
that?
amount.
Should
It
we
is.
say that?
It does say that.
It does say that, but the number, that 75% is 436 acres.
Right.
But if I divide that by the total size, it's 71.7.
Correct. It's 71.7 of the entire parcel, but
Okay.
some of the land is not natural. It's already been cleared. And so that is taken off. And so it's only the natural vegetation that is actually having the 75% of it being preserved. That's why.
It's obviously, if I'm having a hard time, it's not clear in the report.
Right. Right, but the percentage is correct. It is, so if you want to say parentheses, that represents 71.7%, is that what you
Of
said?
the whole
Yeah. Of
property.
the whole project, we can actually put that information in there too. Because it's two different
All right, so.
things.
okay,
Yeah.
Okay. Anything on page 2? These are just before we get to the resolves,
Yeah, no,
obviously.
On page 3, I had a
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Your list of the various buildings and sports courts is different from Claire's on the site plan.
Okay.
And I think this one on the subdivision is more complete. I mean, you don't have the 4 pickle courts,
No, I don't.
you don't have that. Anthony actually breaks it down, and yours should be exactly like his, so that you're talking
So
apples and
paragraph
apples.
2,
On page 3, the
Paragraph 2
first.
on page 3.
I can add it, sure, description, sure.
And it's not in your charts, Claire, you know?
The pickleball court's not on the chart?
Page 3, you're referring to what was approved on the preliminary, as compared to.
Oh, yeah. That goes through the history there, you're right.
But you're right, the pickleball, I may have not said anything about the pickleball
You
court. I
didn't.
think I called them courts.
Okay.
Sports courts, but I think they have
Yes.
to be defined.
I can definitely do that.
Anything on page 4?
On page 5,
Okay.
you refer, on the first whereas, you make reference to an appendix, right?
Oh, yeah, that's.
No,
yeah.
but then the second whereas, don't you want an appendix on that with the Conservation Board referral? I mean, I don't know how you're handling this. We had talked about doing an appendix for
Okay, so
each.
the appendices are in that whole packet that we gave you there.
Okay.
They are in there, actually.
Are they
Actually, where it
numbered?
says here, yes, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever they
Okay,
are.
so then I think you need
So
to.
I gotta take, actually, I just don't want to, I don't want to reference the appendix, actually,
You
in my
don't?
resolution, because,
What?
because we don't approve, we did a staff report for the subdivision, because we was trying to make it easy for the board, but we don't approve staff reports on subdivisions. So I don't want to reference an appendix in a report that's not officially adopted. I'm okay with just referencing the date of the plans, which is what we would normally
But
do.
if someone wants to look at a referral,
We have it in an appendix in our report, it's in there.
all right, what about a general person wants to take a look at it, understand it? Where would they get it if it's not attached to this?
It's in our files, it's in our report, like any other document. If they want to look at maps, they could just come and look at maps. It's not attached to our resolutions. Everything is in the file as foilable, so anybody could come in and
Okay, but
request.
there's no cross-reference as well.
Not in the resolutions.
Mhm.
It's
Could
just-
you have a page at the end? I'm just
It's,
trying, you know.
I'm adapting the staff report, so you could say as indicated in the appendix B of the site plan staff
Yeah,
report.
one page in the back, you know?
Mhm.
Appendix
That's
A,
the
what
staff
is it?
report,
A
not the-
referral, da-da.
It's my staff report,
Your
which
staff
will be
report.
adopted.
Right, but not in the subdivision. We're doing 2 separate resolutions.
Yeah.
We're doing 2 separate.
Two separate
yeah.
resolutions.
So I think you're hearing it'll be in.
In
Claire's staff
mine.
report That we will be adopting.
Okay. And then on 6.
Okay.
You know, when you talk about yield and you get into these old file maps, mention the remaining old file, do you mention the remaining old file maps that, I mean, you make reference to them somewhere.
One of your findings, isn't it?
They're in my findings. There's a lot of findings in here, so I'd have to, the old file map out parcels are 17 and 18 on the findings.
Yes.
The yield, I just was reiterating what we did at the preliminary and the pre-app was how we established 118 units as part of this application. But I do have a separate thing for, the
So the last two sentences of 17 speak to that. Continues to provide legal access to all parcels via Spinney Road, the unopened map road known as Smith Avenue, and potential internal connections designed into the proposed subdivision.
That's in yours.
That's in his,
That's in
on
mine.
number 17.
Number 17 under
It's the
the
third last sentence of that paragraph.
findings.
Last sentence of that paragraph.
On page 10.
On page 10, yes.
Well, it starts on page 9, continues on page 10. And then out parcels, old file map abandonment. Okay, I had that highlighted with a question mark.
Yeah, I mean, the whole intent was just, is to make sure, again, a couple things. Number one, they're not really eligible for opening up and being developed because they don't meet the standards. But that being said, we made sure as part of the process, and this was done during preliminary and pre-app, we noted it, that any out parcels not owned by Discovery Land, whoever may own them, would have legal access regardless. So that was really the key, is that we didn't want to take access from lots just in case,
Right.
even though they're not going to be
And is
developed.
that going to be reflected in some kind of a document?
Well, we have, yes, you'll see. I'll get to it in my conditions. I do have something in there.
Am I the only one that has comments? On page 7, number 5, again, just add acreage, please.
Yes. Okay.
In the groundwater monitoring, there's no mention of fertigation.
What number is that?
12.
12.
Page 9, 15, the workforce housing. I think you should say 12 affordable housing rental units.
Okay.
The old file map on page 10, yeah. And then what is on page 11?
Okay.
The very bottom, the two I's. This is to certify that all lots partial to this plat with requirement the town of
Oh,
Southampton,
okay.
except as modified by the planning board pursuant to.
So,
What is that?
that's a standard we do for all cluster plans. In other words, when you do a subdivision map, you're stating that the maps, that the lots shown on the subdivision map conform in all respects to the town zoning code, unless modified by the planning board through the cluster process, or if it was a zoning board decision, then it would reference the zoning board decision.
Standard.
Yeah, a little notation there. So that's why it's in there.
Except as modified, okay. And then on 12, you talk about the updated zoning modification chart.
Yeah, we're gonna go through that,
Single-
Jackie.
You are?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm gonna go,
'cause-
I'm gonna go through all these, because there's been some changes, and I would use the one when I review it in the book there, is what I would do.
And then on 13, B, 11B, in the event of any violation, all fertilization and pesticide application shall halt, and the use of golf courses, and the golf course shall cease. Okay, all right.
I probably have some revised language for that, but the idea behind that is that the protocols established, in the event that the numbers show that they've exceeded what the anticipation was, that the protocols put in place there would be automatically in place,
Right,
that,
I got
so.
it, I got it. So those are some of my comments, so you need to.
Okay, and I would, like I said to the board, I would use the resolution in that book there, as I go through the conditions, which I've broken down.
Subdivision resolution.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Okay, that doesn't matter.
And if you go to page 11, that's where it starts.
Yeah,
Okay.
B's, therefore be.
Okay, so the resolve part there, the only reason why that's highlighted is not that there's anything missing, it's just that there's 36 sheets to the subdivision sets of plans. So rather than list them all here, I'll put it in. So the resolves has conditions. The first one there, be it and hereby approved, subject to the following conditions. The very first thing is, before you even get to the subdivision map conditions, what are the conditions required for them to, take a blade of, grass out of the, do any clearing? So that's what we did first. So we imposed, number one, the conditions prior to any clearing that may or has been authorized to take place, including the associated with the test wells, the following conditions shall be met. A is a submission of the copy of the Central Pine Barrens final review, which we know we just got, but so that was a condition. 2, retention of an on-site wildlife ecologist or its professional equivalents to conduct wildlife sweeps prior to any clearing in accordance with the approved phasing plan or clearing schedule. We've been meeting with Janice. I'm going to clarify on this one as we go through. We've been meeting with Janice and the applicant on this. The word retention isn't really great. It's really because what's going to happen is Nelson Pope and Voorhees is going to have their specialist out there.
I think you just increased the audio.
Gotcha. And we're going to have another party out there verifying that. So I don't want to say a retention of an on-site. I just want to say an on-site wildlife ecologist or equivalent to conduct wildlife sweeps prior to any clearing in accordance with the approved phasing plan, and verification by the town. And was it the DEC or is it just a third party?
Or the town and or DEC, right?
Yeah, town.
Okay.
By the town and or DEC, that's right. Just wanted to clarify.
So we will be hiring a separate, we'll be engaging a separate?
No, Nelson Pope Voice is going to have their ecologists out there doing the plans that we're approving, doing the sweep first. Is there anything there wildlife-wise that needs to be removed and everything else? And then having, the DEC or the town staff, Marty's office, something out there to verify. Yeah.
Right, so far the DEC has indicated they would be doing that, but we have to just get verification.
So Marty hires this wildlife ecologist?
No. It's Nelson Pope and Voorhees.
They're hiring.
That office is going to have a specialist out there doing the wildlife sweep as clearings going on. We're going to have town staff and or the DEC out there also verifying on behalf of the town.
Not town staff. I mean, what do you mean when you say town staff?
Marty,
Me,
Environment Division.
We're all, we went to school for this, so we can do this. But DEC has actually indicated that they will do it, but we just need verification of that, so that's why we're leaving it.
So it's just careful coordination between the sweeps and your ideas available and being told.
Right, exactly.
C, and we did just get the final one here. It's going to say final review and approval of the construction methodology plan.
We haven't seen any of that. We haven't seen.
We went over the construction methodology. We went over the phasing plan.
But the phasing, but they revised the phasing plan.
They revised the phasing plan based on discussions with the planning board and based on discussions with the town engineer and everything. Of course. That's my wording in here is going to say final review and approval of the construction methodology plan dated December 8th? No, don't speak. I just want to go
I just want to make sure, but there's two plans, and I want to get the names right, because one is the construction management plan dated December 7th, and then the second one is the construction phasing plan dated December 8th.
Okay. So this one's December 7th, the construction management plan. So it's going to be final review and approval of the construction management plan by the town engineer and Department of Land Management.
Today
That's
is 12/8.
Yeah, it came in today.
It came in today.
Yeah.
Based
That's
on
why it's saying
comments
it's got to
from-
get final review.
It's going to be a condition
It's
of
a condition.
approval for.
Condition of approval, based on Pine Barrens, right?
Pine Barrens?
Well, how
Definitely
did
town
happen?
engineer. And we've
Janice.
We didn't
and
see it to
Janice, we've been
discuss
asked, Janice.
Okay. At
And
some
these-
point, this board needs to see it.
That's what the condition of approval of this board. That's what we're leaving it as a condition that you look at it again.
So the methodology and the construction
I
management.
think at the last meeting, you wanted Janice to review it, and she's
Well,
been
it had-
doing that,
it
and that's
had-
where these changes come up.
I see, but we haven't seen it. We only had one session with a person who wanted to, construction pockets all over the place,
Yeah.
and you're,
You've seen a iteration of it, but truthfully, we just got the fresh one today, so you've definitely not seen that.
okay.
And we really wanted staff, including Janice, to kind of look at it first.
And she's been
because
actively looking at it.
Since there's more expertise on
Sure.
their side.
D is a town engineer approval and signature of 6 copies of the final road and drainage plans. It says in there, include a street tree plan. Cross that out. They actually have a separate street tree plan that shows, by the way, areas that are going to be, trees that will be preserved and where they're going to.
Okay, so that's not on any kind of landscape plan? This is incorporated into that, or what?
It's a street tree plan, part of call it a landscaping plan, but it's like
Okay,
any
but
subdivision.
we don't have a landscape plan in the secret, do we?
Yes, we do. It's the VITA plan, VITA. It starts with the letter L in the numbers.
In secret?
In the document submitted and in the box and online, yes.
Okay, but it's not referenced in the secret document, was my point. A landscape plan. You don't, I mean, you have other things, but you don't have
I
landscaping.
don't really reference a lot of the plans specifically in the secret documents, but they're listed in both the site plan and subdivision staff reports.
And then E is the town engineer approval of a stormwater management stormwater pollution prevention plan. So really, the key is got to get all those things in place before any clearing takes place. And that's why we did that separately. So they have some work to do before they could actually start clearing. And then the second part of the, go ahead.
So, the Central Pine Barrens Commission letter from yesterday's meeting also set forth a number of conditions that they have to meet before they can do any clearing. So they'll also have to meet all of those conditions before they can start doing any clearing.
Do you have a copy of that letter?
It was sent out this,
Sent out
by
I
email.
don't think I printed it.
I
Click,
sent
it
it
was
by
clear.
email.
It was attached to
It was
your-
clear, yeah, yesterday,
Yeah, I don't think I have a printed copy with me though.
4 or 5 pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some conditions and they need to be met, obviously, yeah.
Number 2 are changes.
Wayne has a copy for you.
So do you
Great,
need
thank
an
you.
F in,
Thank you.
about the Pine Barrens?
Well, what I'll do is I'll say the submission of the copy of the Central Pine Barrens Road modifications, and I would just say, and compliance with their conditions, It's easy enough. Number 2 are about change. Now we're talking about the actual subdivision map. 2 changes or notes to the subdivision map. The first one, very simple, shall indicate that it says final plat for the Lewis Road Plan residential development. B, all site data calculations as shown within the subdivision map shall be updated as needed to reflect the final calculations as provided herein, and shall be consistent throughout. In other words, here we have our numbers. Let's make sure the charts on the title page and every other number that's been throughout the other sheets are all consistent. So when we get our final maps, before we have them print them up, we're going to go through each sheet again and make sure that the numbers were, consistent. C, all easements encumbering the lot shall be shown on all sheets and details with meets and bounds descriptions. Again, there's various easements associated with the lots. Sometimes they're shown in the details, sometimes they're not shown on the actual map. So we're putting in the condition that the maps and the details should be consistent with all of the various easements. All common driveway and utility easements should be one and the same. I happen to notice on the map, it looked like the driveway easements, the common driveway and utility easements were 2 different things, which they don't need to be, so it's just going to be one easement. E is show the location of the trail connection from the proposed development to the town-owned open space to the east. F is per the town engineer as may be needed, and I say as may be needed because most of the changes that Tom is requesting are going on the road and drainage plans. So I just put it there because there may be some crossover. Per the Office of Fire Prevention and per the East Quogue Fire District, with respect to those, you'll know that in their recommendations, they talked about sprinklers to address some of their concerns, and we have conditions in there as it relates to that. So I just said per the East Quogue Fire District, then the Office of Fire Prevention, because the final maps have to show the final locations of all hydrants and so forth. Property addresses for all the lots to be obtained from the assessor's office. And then the notations that have to go on each of the sheets. Number one, the certify that the plat has been approved by the planning board of the town of Southampton by resolution. Two, this is to certify that all lots and parcels shown on the plat comply with the requirements of the town of Southampton zoning law, except as modified by the planning board pursuant to section 278 of the town law. And again, that's your ability to do clustering and then amend the zoning as needed. Three is a notation that the map was made from actual surveys and the dates, along with the monuments. Four, that any dedications to the town shall be noted on the final, meaning there's a notation on the map that says any lands that to be dedicated to the town are noted, and it does show it on there. And then five, a declaration of covenants and restrictions and common driveway and utility easements have been recorded that affect some or all the lots on the subdivision. So those are just the standard notations that we put on all maps.
May I interrupt just for a second? So Anthony, on number 4, as you know, we're not dedicating the streets and so on. It's all going to the homeowners association. So the other point is, as Anthony indicates, all these notes are already on the plat. What Anthony's asking for is these standard notes to be on every sheet, the 36 sheets, which has been a practice of the board. So we're going to put these, but the note on number 4 actually is modified that only, it recognizes that we're only deeding the certain open spaces that are labeled to be deeded to the town, and everything else be retained by the homeowners association.
That's fine. K, landscape islands within the right-of-way, just the subdivision maps didn't show them. We have them on all the road and drainage plans, but we want to see them.
Okay.
Remove all building envelopes from the final map. And then N, this talks about the zoning chart as follows, and then we have 4 of them there. So let me just go through these real quick. The purpose of the first 3 there, which talks about the lot size and the setbacks, first of all, if the planning board didn't notice, a major mistake on my part, and the applicant pointed it out, and we're not going to do it. If you look at the building coverage that I recommend in there, it gets larger as the lots get larger and not smaller. That was a mistake on my part.
31,000 square feet.
So it was a mistake. The purpose that I was doing about this is they have a zoning chart on that plan, and it's a great chart. It lays out all the setbacks. What I was trying to do was simply say, okay, you have a lot size of 5 to 10,000. Just make them all the same setbacks here. I was doing it for ease of reviewing the chart. The problem is that the chart is 110 different lots. And so I don't know that I'm actually doing anything by doing this. And not to mention, I have the coverages all messed up.
But I was going to ask you how many lots of each? You don't indicate that. Like, are there 40 lots that are between 5,000 square feet and 8? And are there 20 units of XYZ? I mean, we don't know from this.
We don't. My question, and I'm not trying to be funny, since the lot numbers and the size of everything listed on the map, what would be the benefit of saying that we have 20 lots at 5,000 square feet? I'm just trying to figure out in the resolution for purposes.
Get your head around this. Yeah. Do you want to put a chart in here?
There is a chart, if I may. The first page of the map has the zoning modification chart, and we did painstakingly, after presenting to this board, the various building styles. And unlike your typical cluster where you just create 1 acre lots and say, I want 1 acre zoning, the key here is the product that we're providing, the seasonal luxury housing development with a variety of housing types. So as you know, this project, the housing got clustered tighter and tighter and tighter, but to provide the product, we kept the housing types the same, but what happened is the lot sizes got reduced. So after we laid out the housing and put the lots on it, we needed to figure out how that fits for zoning so we don't have a problem walking into the building department. So we went lot by lot.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, there's several lots, the club cabin lots. There's the village lots, and then you get into the woodland lots and so on and so forth. Each one of them, the architects came in, presented to you plans, there are in your files, to show how they fit, that particular house fits on those lots. And there may be a lot that has a lot size, but it may be a narrow lot, and therefore the setbacks on that narrow lot are different than the same lot, which would have the same lot area. So that's the problem with what Anthony's trying to do, is trying to simplify that chart, which went lot by lot. So I think what he's saying is the chart is probably the appropriate way to leave it. as we have on the map.
Can you just put the chart here?
Oh, yeah, I could reference
Well,
it.
yeah, he'll reference the lots and the specific thing, and
Like
it'll
you
be
said.
consistent with the map.
Yeah, the finding, your finding in your resolution actually refers to that whole notes and lot modifications already that are on that map.
I could do that.
I mean,
Although,
I've
I
seen a
think-
couple of pictures of houses. I have not seen lot by lot anything.
Where is the chart?
It's on the first page, M1.
On the subdivision map. On the
It's right here.
subdivision map.
You want it? It's, is it in the book? Probably not.
You mean in the book that you sent?
This is the chart.
That's a chart of all the setbacks.
On the chart.
So it's difficult to put the evening report.
It is.
Yeah,
And
It's
exactly.
a little unwieldy.
It's an eye test.
It is. I'd rather just refer to the modification.
Right, which is fine.
Let me continue here, because the one after those, then you have 4, it says remove notation 5 on the cover sheet that eliminates the accessory rear yard coverage requirement. So
You're keeping that.
that's, well, we're gonna fix that. What happens is there's a 20% rear yard accessory coverage in the town for accessory structures across all zoning districts, okay? And so what they're asking for in this particular case is to simply eliminate the 20% and just leave it sort of open-ended. Which we don't typically do on subdivision maps. Now, in this particular case, I get that this is a master planned community, they've site planned their houses, so I don't have a problem with giving relief. I couldn't justify coming to the board and saying, just eliminate accessory rear yard coverage, I can't. So, after looking at it and everything, some of these lots are pretty small, most of them are. I'm okay with 50% instead of the 20%, but that would be my recommendation, is that we would set the rear yard accessory lot coverage at a maximum of 50% and not leave it open-ended. That would be my, to give some threshold here, is my opinion, but.
So if I may, Anthony did reach out to us on that point, and we went back to the architects to look at that, and I think the point is we can live with that restriction. It's reasonable.
Streamlines the permitting process.
But when you get to your bigger lots, which, what's the biggest lot you have, about 30,000?
30,000,
How much?
30,000.
So that gives you,
However, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also going to be a limitation on the size of swimming pools on those lots.
No, well, on the club cabin lots, the smaller lots, and so we have, which was a discussion that staff asked us about, is that on those lots, we wouldn't have swimming pools or, first of all, no tennis courts on any lot, okay, number one. Number two is, with respect to the smaller lots, particularly the club cabins, nothing greater than 100 square feet. Now, interestingly, a 5,000 square foot lot with whatever the setback was, we would have like a 700 square foot rear yard, and 20% of that is like 140 square feet. So you couldn't put a patio or pool or otherwise with the 20% requirement. So this gives it a little flexibility, and all they're allowed to do is something like a spa in the rear yard on those other lots. Otherwise, they would have to comply.
What's
No,
the
I
square
guess-
footage?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's the square footage of the house on this lot?
On which lot?
The largest.
The largest lots? Well, the largest lots, so again, this is a planned community. I don't know, Jessica, what's the number overall? The woodland lots, two different sizes ranging from 20 to 30,000, I think is represented about 25% of the project. All the other houses are being built by our client, and you as a landowner will be given a choice. You want this model, or this model, basically following a similar footprint or style or otherwise. So on 3/4 of the project, you're really having very similar size houses. At best on the larger lots, but then that's all dictated by the normal zoning requirements.
Is that all on the
modified.
chart? In
Yes.
other words,
Yes.
there's a
Each lot.
2,000 square foot house on these kinds of lots, there's a 4,000 square foot house on those kinds of lots.
No, we don't dictate what the house is, but the zoning requirements dictates that. And then part of the architectural review, you actually are approving the club cabin lots, the architecture for that.
Okay, I can't get a number here.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you
We
look
would
at
never
the
do
front?
2,003.
I'm just curious.
It's percentage. It'd be the lot coverage of percentage. It would,
So
that,
we
so
didn't-
the
would you
30,000
please-
square foot lots would have 30% coverage, that's what they're proposing.
Well, could you then, I'm confused, to answer Jackie's question, I guess mine, what, if you do the math, what's the size of the house?
So about 8,000, you could have up to an 8,000 square foot, 8,000 square
More
foot
than
footprint.
That's a footprint, so you don't, you know.
So the club cabins, I was just told, have a footprint about 1,700 square feet, and then the village lots are a little bit above 2,000. But as the staff is getting to, is there's some flexibility on the larger lots to have what everyone, the typical house that you see everywhere else in the town.
Thank you. That
Thanks.
answers my question, whoever gave the information.
So Anthony, you're gonna change number 4 to just one item and say that 50%, we gotta change that to 50% on the rear yard?
Yep. Continuing then, number 3, submission and review of the final road abandonment map and submission of the necessary certificates of abandonment from underlying old file maps, lots, and streets with necessary abandonment title certifications and submission of copies of all recorded legal documents. I did actually get a copy, an updated map, but we're going to keep the condition in there, so they'll have to meet that condition. Submission of a final construction, I got to get the right terminology, construction management plan.
And the phasing plan.
And the phasing plan.
So 4 says submission of final construction management plan?
And construction phasing plan, it'll say also.
We're gonna update our books, or do we have to take notes?
Take notes. We're not updating those books. These are draft reports in there. Everything that comes out of this today is being updated and finalized. We're not updating those
Okay,
books.
so we can put them out, right?
Yeah, you can, yes. We spent hours yesterday doing that.
But you'll email us final.
Of course, of course. Oh, and this, yes, absolutely.
Thanks, John.
Number 5, submission and approval of a revegetation plan of the existing disturbed areas in the open space, which we discussed. 6 is a preparation and submission of a performance bond estimate. And then 7 is the planning board setting the performance bond and amount and the balance of the review fee, which we do in coordination with the town engineer. And then construction of the roads and drainage improvements in accordance with the approved plans to the satisfaction of the town engineer, or posting of the performance bond agreement.
And where are you gonna put landscaping plan and trees? You have re-veg.
Let's see here, hold on one second.
So, are you talking about the landscaping plans for the roadways?
Street trees.
For the
Street
development,
trees?
you've got street trees, you've got, I'm sure, some plantings and entranceways, and there's no landscaping here, no landscaping plan.
Well, we don't do landscaping plans in subdivisions. The site plan's gonna handle landscaping plans.
All right, then let Claire handle it.
Yes.
Okay, then number 9 was clearing and construction shall be in accordance with the construction management plan, construction phasing plan approved by the planning board. And then 10 is the town board acceptance of the bond agreement for the roads and drainage improvements. Number 11 is the submission of the groundwater monitoring agreement that implements the groundwater monitoring program, which agreement shall be executed between the applicant and the town of Southampton, permitting the town to hire third-party consultants for purpose of sampling and reviewing the results. Such agreement shall be approved by the town board and executed prior to the construction of the golf course. The applicant shall be responsible for the cost of such monitoring. Such agreement shall be in the form approved by the town attorney and memorialized in a covenant to be recorded in the office of the Suffolk County Clerk, simultaneously with the filing of the subdivision and condominium maps. And then they will, the covenant will include the following: compliance with the approved integrated turf management plan protocols, including but not limited to the filing of annual reports. That's the big key with these management plans, is the annual reports that we get. 2, B, in the event any violation, and really shouldn't say of the IT-18 protocols, it should be of the groundwater monitoring protocols, all fertilization and pesticide application activities shall halt and the use of the golf course shall cease until such time it has been determined that the cause of the violation and corrective action can be identified. I think
And
when...
ultimately, who will make that call? to see.
I would imagine it would be based on the town, getting the information submitted to them on
Is
that
that Marty
review.
Petrovic?
That's right.
Petrovic's, right?
So he would be your consultant. He's going
Jan
to
is
report to the Department of Land Management, which
Right.
is the current protocol, and then the Department of Land Management, if they believe that there's been a breach in the agreement, which is not just the standards. You know, there's the whole protocol and the groundwater, the standards,
Right.
and what you have to do and stop fertilizing and go check and make correct. But if we were to have total failure of that, then I provided, with the consultation of the town attorney, language that is in the agreement, and I can just read that to you, but that's in essence what Anthony was trying to say, that in the event the owner fails to conform with the terms of this agreement, which is the agreement with the town board, which is you're gonna pay for the town to.
For remediation
to
or
get
whatever.
pay for the testing and
Consultant.
everything else, and, or fails to cure or remedy any breach or violation of this agreement, including failure to take necessary response actions, which are detailed in the groundwater monitoring plan, and after due notice from the town of such breach or violation, then in such event, the town shall have the right to order the owner to cease use and operation of the golf course element of the project, unless and until the breach or violation of this agreement is cured. So there's a lot of remedies in there, and that the town board has, but that is added as an additional remedy.
And that was the process, I think, Mark, you explained it, where at Sabonic, then somebody got a call, and it wasn't actually something that you applied, it was something that was applied onto turf that was brought
Yeah.
in, and so that
And
is very sensitive.
And actually, they're all the response actions that are in the process. This language I read to you is not in either the bridge or Sabonic's agreement. So this is above and beyond what you did there, but it makes it clear. I mean, it's really putting our guy on notice that you just can't walk away from this. You got to react to it. And we have no problem because that's the way it's going to be managed.
Good.
So.
Thank you, Wayne. And then a general catch-all compliance with the approved groundwater monitoring program protocols, whatever they may be. Like you said, there's a lot. Then 12 covenants and restrictions applied, and there's a bunch of them to this. The first one, A, the zoning requirements are modified per the table of lot modification that we just referenced. Again, B, the clearing and fertilized vegetation requirements also in the table, so we'll reference that as well. C, the next several just relate to the non-single family residential lots. So C, the common reserve area parcel, shown as Rec 1, Lot 110, shall be permitted to have the common buildings and structures and 8 residential dwelling units. And the bulk requirements are modified, as we said, and subject to site plan review and approval. So that's where we put that in there. Because you may, during this, when you review these, say, shift this here, do this. So I wanted to make sure we connected it to the site plan review process. And D talks about again, the same thing, the workforce housing lot. That's lot 140 with the 12 rental units. So we note that the dimensional setbacks and all the zoning requirements are modified and per the site plan to be approved by the planning board. E talks about lot 141, and that's the administration building. And again, the same thing. The zoning modifications are in effect and subject to final review and approval.
This is all under declaration of
Covenants and restrictions. It's all, yeah.
If I may, they're also all notes on the map.
Okay.
F is the STP site. So again, as it relates to the zoning modifications, subject to site plan approval by the planning board. G talks about the common reserve areas. I listed the parcels there. It's Rec 1, Rec 2, Rec 3, Rec 4, 6, 7, and the lot numbers, again, subject to the site plan review and approval and all associated zoning modifications. And there to speak, we just talked about the entry lot there with the security gate, golf course, and all the rest of it. Again, subject to whatever zoning modifications that the planning board agrees to during the site plan review process. I talks about no tennis courts to be constructed on lots 1 through 110. Those are the single-family lots. So, by the way, there's usually the biggest chunk of someone's rear yard coverage usually is the tennis courts. So by not having tennis courts on these properties, eliminates the ability to cover the rear property.
They also have tennis courts.
No, I understand that. I understand that. J, notwithstanding any of the contrary, no swimming pools or spas exceeding 100 square feet shall be constructed or permitted on the club cabin lots. That's lots 54 through 70.
These are all requirements from Discovery people, right? Based on this is what they've submitted.
Well, these are covenants that the staff prepared.
But these sizes and what have you.
Oh, and
yeah.
they've agreed to, and they will probably be in the HOA agreements too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
exactly.
sure. K, no further subdivision of any lots or common reserved areas. No lot line modifications without planning board approval. M is about all the underground utilities, and same thing with utility poles for N. O talks about lots 45 and 46. This is just the common driveway and utility requirements for the lots 45 and 46. Lots 50 and 51 are also subject to a singular common access. So they'll be subject to the common driveway utility easement there. Page 15Q, lots 102, or 101 and 102 have a common driveway. And again, the conditions, the requirements, like we do for all of them, are in there. Lots 108, 109, and 110 shall have a singular common driveway. I mentioned this, but let me just see something. 108, no, I'm okay with that. Never mind. There wasn't a change there. So another common driveway for those lots. S talks about prior to any clearing, the areas of proposed storage shall be delineated with the proposed project limiting fence and hay bales in accordance with the approved SWIP. In addition, appropriate erosion and sedimentation control measures are set forth in SWPPP shall be taken to ensure that stormwater runoff, which may occur during or immediately after development, and that has to be obviously contained on site and not go into the right-of-ways or adjacent properties. T, this says that all clearing and disturbance, basically anything that's going to happen on this property, the development of the lots, the roads, the units, the common reserve areas, are subject to the turf management plan, a construction management plan, and a construction phasing plan. So we'll note that they're on the hook for that. U talks about the clearing of and development of the site in accordance with all applicable New York State DEC protocols, particularly as relates to the northern long-eared bat. Lots 26 and 27 and 41 and 42 are subject to drainage easements shown on the final map. This is letter W. This talks about the sprinkling of the residential lots to address the concerns by the fire district and the fire prevention. So all dwelling units and principal buildings to be constructed on the lots of units and common reserve area parcels on the aforesaid subdivision map, including the buildings on the common reserve areas, parcels designated as workforce, lot 140, and administration, lot 141, shall be sprinkled. The STB building, pump houses, recreational buildings, comfort stations, and other detached accessory buildings not used for residential purposes need not be sprinkled unless required by the code.
Sprinkler.
Sprinkler.
Sprinkled with
Such a
sprinkles.
weird word.
It is such a weird word. Is it a word? Who knows? X is the retention of stormwater before, during, and after construction on site.
Recreation buildings do not have to be sprinkled?
I don't believe so, but again, it is a New York State building code requirement. So what happens is when we're mandating now the residential structures because that's what the fire districts, gave us information for. Usually a sprinkler requirements come right out of a building permit application. They usually go in, if it's 3 stories or if it's this, then the building department mandates it. Would you like me to word it to say, as may be determined by?
I think that's what you said. Unless required by code or other regulations.
Okay, good. So it's okay.
Okay.
So that's a catch-all.
Yeah, okay.
I like his language, so I'm going to steal it.
Steal. Y just talks about the New York State speedies, general permits and the requirements associated with it, and that's a New York State DEC. Provisions for compliance with New York State environmental. Oh, okay. So Z is just again talks about the New York State DEC as it relates to the northern long-eared bat. Huh?
Anthony, I think that's a repeat of the one you had above. So.
Oh, you might be right. That's right. Z could probably come out since I already have in there, yeah. AA, we ran out of letters there. No accessory apartment shall be constructed on any of the lots. That's a density issue. Affordable housing covenants associated with the 12 workforce rental units.
Anthony, can I just point out that you're requiring that to be
Oh,
a
you have to
separate document, number 14? So-
Yep, I see that, Wayne.
Yeah.
So BB, where it talks about affordable housing covenant, I could take that out because number 13 or number 14 is the affordable covenant.
Yeah,
so
it's a separate document.
It's
and
a
it's-
separate
Take
document.
BB out.
Take BB out.
Is there anything about what kind of criteria is going to be used for the affordable housing?
It doesn't, and so what happens is, the planning board establishes what's going to be the affordable, the single-family rentals. What happens is, and I sort of like this, is, we have our housing and community development director, and usually what happens is, we set the parameters, say, here's the units, and it goes there, and they then determine at some point when the units are built, what is the town's need at that time? How many, candidates do we have, and are we filling them all at the median level, at the, I don't know that we could spell out what the
Okay,
criteria is,
so
but
it's-
we do have somebody that is going
Yeah,
to spell out that criteria.
Carabac is going to do that.
That's right.
Okay.
It's all managed under Chapter 216 of the code, and that's what this covenant will actually say, so.
Okay, so 13 is the submission of the common driveway and utility easements for all the common driveways. 14.
Did you want to
You
talk
missed
about
CC.
CC? Because it's the timing.
That's important.
Oh, God, I can't believe I missed that. So, CC, provision indicating that no more than 30 market rate lots shall be issued C certificates of occupancy unless and until a certificate of occupancy has been issued for 12 affordable units. So, there we'll do is we're going to link the necessity to build the affordable units with the first 25% of the units. in
That's
this
smart.
development.
Good idea.
So that works. Interestingly, we have a subdivision that was done in the 80s, and the 3 lots that weren't built in that subdivision are the 3 affordable lots.
Go figure, right?
Go figure. So that's a condition in there. 13, the submission of the common driveway and utility easements. 14, submission of the affordability covenant for the 12 units. 15 is a submission of a covenant and restriction that limits the use of the golf course and other site amenities to the residents within the subdivision and their guests. This will be both a filed covenant and a deed restriction. 16, the submission of a covenant and restriction that prohibits the owners of the lots from establishing a primary residency for the purposes of satisfying the New York State education law residency requirements, and in the event such covenant and restriction is violated, the applicant agrees upon notification of any such enrollment against such covenant that they will be bound to provide a sum equivalent to the out-of-district enrollment rate for each student in attendance. So that's the catch-all that Christine sort of came up with. Look, we're covenanting that this is not going to be primary residences. There's going to be limitations on when they can operate, right? We had a discussion on the seasonality. But just in case, right? What happens if because we've had this discussion. Tell someone that they can't live somewhere, regardless. This catch-all just basically says if you violate the covenant, that, and there is a school-age children, you are on the hook for the money to pay for the out-of-district costs associated with that.
And so we have something here about that agreement with the town, the seasonality, that it's limited residency here,
Oh, yeah.
180 days,
And it's also, it's going to be embedded in the covenant itself.
in this covenant.
It
Yeah.
will be, yes.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, and what is it limited to now?
I think it's,
How many
October.
days?
6 months.
So it's 180 days?
No. So since day one, the issue is, as indicated in your resolution here, is allowing a owner of a lot to reside long enough on the premises so that they could, in theory, meet the state education law requirements to be able to send their child to school. So there is a restriction that you can't reside, you can't declare this as your primary residence and domicile. You can't reside more than 30 consecutive days. So you're buying into that. But nonetheless, the second part of the covenant actually has a whole registration thing so that when you come to the property, there's a record of how long you're actually there. And in no case, however, could you reside there more than 180 days.
180.
Yes.
And that'll go in when the covenants that they get reviewed by the town attorney.
So just so you know, I have forwarded to the town attorney the additional language that would be, so in addition, so you have a landowner buying, a lot owner buying into this, but it's being managed by the homeowners association in the first instance. But the covenant also points out that there's a presumption that if one enrolls their child, that could be a breach of the covenant in the first place. So there's a whole remedy process for that where we could prevent that. But in addition, I think this is coming from the town attorney, is that if in the end of this, you could also require them to pay that out-of-district enrollment cost.
Normally would be in district as a.
Yes.
Is there any remedy other than that, if people want to stay? I mean, does the town have any obligation, legal obligation?
I mean, if there's a violation of covenants, we would have all our normal things, but with this, we thought that, because normally, if you violated a covenant for residency and you went to the school, they're in district. They wouldn't be paying anything.
Right.
But now they're paying what it would cost somebody to come from out of district. And it's fairly substantial per kid. It could be like anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 per kid.
And
per
that's
year.
which school district, that East Quogue?
East Quogue.
East Quogue School District?
Which then feeds
Goes
into
to
West Hampton.
West
It's gonna be
Hampton.
all the same.
For that, 17, submission of deed of dedication for all open space parcels to be dedicated to the town. 18 is submission of conservation easements for all the open space that's being retained by the HOA. That's pretty standard. Include a provision for a trail connection, whichever HOA parcel that is, just make sure it includes the trail connection for the residents within the subdivision. Submission of the drainage easements that we mentioned before associated with the lots. 20 is the filing and recording of a condominium map for the 8 condominium units and submission of a recorded copy to the planning office. Wayne, get up there because you'll have to explain number 21 because I'm a little confused by it myself. About this access easement.
So, as you know, this has to do with the abandonments. As Anthony indicated right at the beginning, that you can't leave supposedly when you abandon someone without their paper access. That's their so-called legal access. So our abandonments are done in a certain way, and we leave portions of Smith Avenue. Nonetheless, there are portions where they could get access to our streets, but again, those parcels, as you noted in your findings, the out parcels, some are owned by the county and town as open space, so we know they're not going to be built on, but there's about 8 or 9 that are privately owned, which we've been chasing for a decade now, and they can either clear their title, determine who owns what, and so on and so forth. So as the health department required, Anthony was suggesting that there be submission of easements, but we can't because an easement is a 2-party document. It requires the other party to sign on to it. So what the health department required us to do is provide an irrevocable offer to grant that easement in the event those lots are approved for development by both the health department and this board. And the approval by this board would be under the old file map regulations, which none of the parcels meet the definition of a development parcel size under the zoning code. So that's what this condition is, and in fact, what we did is provided that language in the covenant. So that wouldn't necessarily be a different document, but you did want the note on the map to be corrected because, among other things, it refers to Smith Avenue and Smith Road. It's Smith Avenue, so.
Are they just paper roads, or?
Paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just paper road. Continuing then, submission of title certification identifying mortgagees, lien holders that must consent to any legal documents. Submission of mortgage releases for dedications if applicable. Submission of mortgage consents for C&Rs and easements if applicable. A town attorney approval of the form of all legal documents. A town board acceptance of all legal documents. Number 27, submission of an executed contract and proof of payment to the water authority for the installation of the water main and the hydrants. That's pretty standard. 28 is the submission of a copy of the deed of dedication to the 4-acre water authority parcel. Yeah. We're going to add something there because if the water authority decides they don't want it, I think we would say there that an offer of dedication, a future offer of dedication to the town of Southampton, in the event that the water authority doesn't take it, it would be dedicated to the town as open space.
So right now, with our agreement with the Water Authority, they do want to actually put a test well out there. Make sure they have good water, but, so part of the contract we have with them is they actually want an easement at this time, which has a clause that says that they will have the right to accept the deed if they find the water's good. If they find the water's not good, then they don't want the parcel. And as you know, you don't want that to be left as a building lot. So as Anthony has indicated, and we suggested exactly what he was talking about, a conditional offer of dedication, that in the event they do not take title and don't want it for future water supply well, then it would be, become open space.
Okay, but that's part of the farm up there, right? And there were.
What was a
fixing
farm 30
pesticides,
years
right.
ago, yeah.
So it's questionable in terms of.
Who knows?
Water
Yeah.
quality, yeah.
29, submission of contracts with proof of payments from the utility companies, as we normally require. Payment of the balance of the review fee, which we'll do in conjunction with the town engineer's office. And then, of course, the submission of the Mylars and paper prints with the updated health department approval.
Did they also submit something digitally? Can they not give you like a CD or something other than paper, in addition to paper? You know, there are some towns and states that are doing this now.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know about
County
Southampton.
clerk is not there yet. So the county clerk requires the Mylars,
Yeah.
and the assessor's office wants other documents. And so the paper prints were actually for your records, but what happens is, as soon as that does come back to us, we will
Digitize
scan
it?
it, digitize it, and you get a copy, and that
Good.
is part of the records. It goes,
Yeah.
also goes on the town GIS automatically. So if you look on the GIS, you can locate filed maps automatically. So.
Great. Okay, are there any more questions on this? Because I'll take a vote on this. Any other questions? I'll start at that end of the table.
I just picked up, I didn't want to bring it up, but
I
there's
need a
about 3 or
motion.
4 typos. and
No
I'll
problem.
just send that to you.
Please,
A motion
What
by
would you do that?
Dennis, second by George. Tom?
Yes.
That's fine.
George?
Yes.
We're voting on this
Oh,
subdivision.
oh, you pulled it, yes.
No,
Jackie, you
we're
just want to
voting.
say the motion? The motion
Yes,
to
the
approve?
motion to approve the subdivision, the Lewis Road subdivision plan.
I have a motion, and George has the second.
Second, and
Please
Tom
poll the
voted
vote.
yes, George voted yes, Dennis?
Yes?
No? No.
I'm a yes, but if I might just speak for a moment. Not unlike board member forum, this has been a very emotional process, and it's exhausting. A lot of reading, awful lot of consideration of every word in the reports, every word from the public. There was a gentleman that came to the public hearing, and he offered, he told us, you know, have strength and remember the children, remember the children. I have children. I have 2 kids. I live here. I plan on retiring here. You know, I'm very, very concerned about, you know, the groundwater quality, environmental quality, overdevelopment. The gist of it to me, I had a checklist. Came down to, you know, the groundwater monitoring, the pesticide monitoring. I was very interested to see what the Pine Barrens Commission had to say. And twice they signed off on the project. So I'm a yes on this as well. But I would just plead to the applicants, this people, right? For the children, groundwater, the environment. We are putting a tremendous amount of faith in you. And that's why I asked about, well, who's gonna, where the checks and balances come from? Who shuts it down if it goes wrong? If it goes wrong, stop. Stop. Figure it out. Right? So, as much as, you know, we're carrying a tremendous amount of burden, back at you. So I'm a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kate?
My earlier no necessitates a no on this as well.
Okay, so the tally is 4 in favor, 3 opposed. The subdivision plan as proposed passes. Now we'll move on to the site plan.
No.
Okay. I gotta get my stuff
Thank you.
in the meeting tonight.
You did the heavy lift here.
You have a meeting?
He's got the
Hearings
6
tonight.
o'clock.
I got the
He's
6 o'clock with you
hearings.
guys.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, he's got CBA, so you'd like to
No,
have.
he
No,
he
we
has
have
That's next
planning tonight.
planning tonight.
Public hearing tonight here.
Oh,
Okay.
ZBA next week.
done in the next
Bring back a pizza.
So Claire, the site plan as contained in the.
Right, so I have the staff report, it's been updated. I think the most progressive, productive thing would be just to go to the conditions, if the board is in agreement with that. Does that sound good with you?
What page, Claire?
So if you go past, it's the pink sheet for the site plan. Just look at the
Second pink.
yeah, with the site plan.
Second pink tab,
Right,
it says
draft in progress, site plan, conditional approval resolutions.
site plan resolution.
So, based on your comments as we were going through Anthony's, I'm gonna make sure that we just spell out what the percentage of the lot is gonna be the natural vegetation, so that's easy, I'll add that, I'll spell out the pickleball courts. But otherwise, I'm suggesting we go to the the conditions. In my case, we adopt in all site plans the staff reports, so that is basis of the decision in this case. So that's why it's a simpler, whereas the description, the history is all Appendix A, B is the referrals, C are the public comments, and D is the original finding statement from 2019. So that's all by reference. And so I'm suggesting we go to the changes to the site, the conditions, if the board's in agreement. Okay, there's changes to the site plan. The site plan shall be revised in accordance with this approval and recommendations by agencies and appropriate revision dates noted. All town engineer comments will be addressed. Page 6, page 6 of the resolution.
I'm sorry, can we, I
Yep.
have two comments on,
Yep.
on the report itself.
Okay, that's fine. So what page?
Before we do that,
Yep.
page 6, second report.
Yep.
And I don't know if there's an actual answer to this, but in A.
Of the report.
Of the report.
Okay, let's go back to the report.
Page 6 of the report.
The report.
I want to make sure I have it. That's
That's
what you
okay.
sent to me, right? So
Yes.
hopefully I'm not the same.
Yep.
So I know from the report I'm looking at is 47% original.
Yeah, that's fine.
The other question, the last one. Right, so as required by the 2019 finding statement, blah, blah, blah. As part of site plan conditions, to monitor performance of the site entrance and Lewis Road. I mean, what exactly are we monitoring and what are we looking for? And what's the rectification what are we looking for?
Right,
to monitor?
so I haven't done this very often, and this was a carryover, so I was very wary to change it at this point. I would have done it, maybe change that condition, because you hired someone to look at the traffic now, and we got
The entrance.
right, some very good feedback about doing this turning lane, which is now a condition that we do. So it's possible that this condition will change. I was just worried that we were changing it 1 week before the decision, like as I was starting to think about this, without some analysis. I would like you to hire someone to say that's not a necessary component, or yes it is, or no. It was to monitor, to make sure whether we would add a turning lane, or we would add widen the entrance, having some kind of monitoring. So it looks like, I agree, like a regular person, and you're an engineer, would say maybe that's been addressed with this turning lane. However, I'm not quite there yet without having like a specialist look at that issue and see if that
So
condition should go away.
Is it reflected in the condition that you're putting it?
Yes, that they're gonna monitor it. It may be, and I think the applicant was probably looking for that condition to go away because it has been looked at, but I wasn't there yet because I would like, as you say, as I say, a specialist to look at that issue, make sure that that's not needed anymore. Because it was something carried over from the town board. The town board asked for it first in their decision, or their secret analysis, and then the planning board asked for it in their 2019 secret analysis. So I wasn't ready just to say lop it off.
We hired to actually made that recommendation. We have that middle turn.
Right, but only for the entrance and not for like everything, you know, not this condition to go away. That's my problem with eliminating
The
it.
Spinney Road, is that it, the emergency exit? Is that what
No,
we're talking
no,
about?
we're talking about,
The paragraph above that.
right.
As
paragraph.
required by the 2019, a program will be prepared for the, let's see this, for the.
Wayne, did you have a comment on it?
I was going to say, is as Claire tried to describe it, is that the town board, this is a vestige, they wanted to, just to assure the traffic impacts were not going to impact the access point onto Lewis Road. They wanted some future monitoring to take place, and what was never decided was, okay, after you monitor it, so what?
Yeah, that's,
You know,
that's kind of what I was.
And so
Right.
what we looked at in trying to make sense out of that was the fact that this board chose to go and have the traffic engineer look at this, and he actually came up with, and I believe he stated that despite the traffic numbers being minimal and the impact being minimal, he still recommended a left-hand turn. That will, or under ordinarily traffic engineering wouldn't be required. And that was the point all along, is that there was nothing in the traffic engineering that would dictate a left-hand turn lane. So the point is now this board has taken it to another level and actually has asked for what I would presume would be about the only mitigation. The only mitigation at the intersection would be a traffic light to control traffic movements. So I think the left-hand turn, and we think that would obviate the need for future monitoring, since you did put the left-hand turn. So that's something I think Claire wants to revisit, but I think she wants Ray Tobias to weigh in on that and give you advice.
So that's what you.
Yeah, that's what I would think that would be the appropriate step to do.
And the only other thing I had was in the next page, where you talk about the accessory buildings in the golf
Yes.
course.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you identified, you know, in line with the ZBA decision, so I think maybe some language in here, if you're agreeable, if you agree with this, like the comfort station, where you talk about 2 comfort stations being 480 square feet, but maybe a definitive statement that this is actually in line with the ZBA decision.
Okay.
If you agree with that.
Yeah, and you know, I'm sorry, I just said all other buildings. Do you want me to say these appears at above? I say that below there's the other statement, but I'll say it right underneath this, underneath the
Can you
maintenance.
just guide us what you're doing?
So there would be a statement that says the accessory buildings of the golf course project are listed below, and I describe them, and then I'll say the planning board finds that this is consistent with the ZBA decision.
But it isn't consistent.
It is.
Well, then you have to explain how 500 becomes 1,400 and.
It's not, it's 500 square feet. The total is with the overhangs.
Yeah, and we had that discussion last meeting.
We
You know,
did,
The comfort
but-
station itself being the toilet was 500 square feet, and the overhang would be a shelter for lightning.
Yeah, and if you have a group of people running off the.
It's a porch. It's an open porch where you could drive your cart or stand during a storm, as opposed to in the restroom itself. So that's typical, and that's there, and that was what was actually shown to the zoning board. So they used the number 500, and the 500 was always the walled-in comfort station, 500 square feet. So we believe it conforms.
Well, I'm going to disagree.
And this board approved those on the preliminary. So,
The preliminary from
doesn't matter, you're bound by your preliminary approval.
2001,
No, 2019.
yes.
Those are the
An alternative would be the awning, remove the awning. But
Okay.
I think
Like put it up
that's-
separately as a
Well,
separate
it's-
structure, which you're allowed to do as a golf course if you want. So it makes sense to have it as one structure rather than 2 separate structures.
I think also, if I can say, George, what George is saying is that, you know, this was the ZBA directive, and we just want to make sure that we are not contradicting.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to account for this and amend it accordingly, or not amend it, or add to it. And I think that's what we're saying.
The planning board, I was gonna say, the planning board finds that the above descriptions are consistent with the ZBA decision.
So we had a discussion last
We had
meeting
a
where it was clear
discussion.
that, or it was stated and nobody objected to it. Like the maintenance building, that there was 4,500 square feet of it attached onto another building, for a matter of scale.
Right.
But that portion of that building, and when we get the plans, it should clearly reflect in the plans. So this section, 4,500 square feet is designated maintenance building, and other things is administration.
On the floor plans?
I don't,
Maybe,
I
just to be
think,
consistent with the ZBA.
I don't think the plan currently is consistent. So if this board is saying it is, I would highly recommend that you give some reasons why we think it is.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And-
Well, there's a chart that says
No,
the
it just,
breakdown, and I describe it under number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm just going to have a simple statement that based upon the above.
So if you have a covered porch on your house, does that count of the square footage of your house?
No.
So then it is consistent with
Standard
the other.
protocol
Right.
of the town.
Right, okay.
You measure floor, a open porch does not count.
Asked and answered, thank you.
Do anybody else want me to talk about the staff report? There's a couple conditions I've highlighted
Yes.
in the staff report. Yes? Okay.
Yeah, you want to go over those?
Yes, so any changes from the last meeting, so we'll just go back. The two
Page 6.
highlighted parts of 6, one is the sprinklers, though I do like Anthony's wording
Sprinkling.
better. Sprinklers, sprinkled. So I have, I'm gonna put his language in there, and it's gonna be the residential building shall have the sprinklers installed. So, but anything that is non-residential will be per the code. And then the only other thing is I wanted the emergency access to Spinney Road to be very reflected on the plans, because this is, we want to make sure there's a secondary access to the facility in case there's
Right now, they are
issues.
not.
Well, I think they were intending to do it, but I just wanted to reflect it on the plans, and it will be a general condition of approval. So 9 has to do with the affordable housing. There was some comments from the board about possibly having some exterior entrances, and in talking to the applicant, they have agreed to provide workable locking doors to the garden entrances, which could be facilitated to be a secondary entrance or the main entrance, whatever you choose to do on the property. So I thought that was a good compromise. Obviously, the second story.
Wasn't there an issue to have front door, to have a
yeah,
door?
I mean,
Yeah.
what I was the one that recommended based on a talk that I participated in, which some of us did, that Janice was speaking to the affordable units that we've just recently built within the town, where they're actually, the entrances to the units are on the street.
Mhm.
And there are no inside corridors at all.
Mhm.
And that is the new norm for creating affordable units. And so I was recommending that they look into that. Putting a lock on a door is not what I was recommending at all.
Okay.
So I just.
So not to do that. Should we not do this?
I think you need to know that we considered what you asked for. This is a 2-story building, unlike Sandy Hollow and other places that were referenced, where
True story.
the buildings, their main entrance, as you suggest, is the only entrance. Here, these buildings, the first floor, have 2 access points, one in the interior, and they also have a door that leads to a private garden area. So your suggestion, the first thing we thought about is that we would be eliminating private gardens for all those first floor units. And we didn't want to do that, but
That's a
on the
fact.
other hand, we wanted to make sure, and this is what staff was pointing out, is that those units could choose to access their premises either way. Because normally it would be, you would only access through the hallway and then from the interior out to the garden. But this way you could use either way as an access point.
I'm just
And they asked for a different style of
Yeah.
door.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that that was not what I was suggesting based on the talk I participated in.
I understand. I spoke to Janice about it in length, and she agreed that this may be a compromise.
So what is that going to say now?
A lockable front door. There are going to be French doors to the garden units. So, in the number 10, the phasing plan now obviously is going to be a condition of approval, so that's what I'll say. Since we're getting recent versions. And I think I don't have anything else in this report, but let me just take a peek. Oh, I do, on number 16, I do, the second last paragraph, I do reference the latest Pine Barrens referral. And that will be part of the appendix.
I request that you put in some kind of landscaping language as a category. Okay, you've got, do you have lighting here?
There is a landscape plan that you have.
I want it
So you want to
referenced-
recognize that.
I want it recognized and referenced in here, yeah.
Okay.
You've got all kinds of other, you've got lighting, cultural features, facades, so we need a landscaping plan. We need
Where
that.
do the sustainability pieces come in?
Okay, so landscaping is under C. It's not very detailed, but they are using native vegetation when possible. And then the energy conservation
Yeah.
is on page 15. So that is, the plan should include universal EV charging stations at the clubhouse parking and the workforce housing area and admin area at a ratio of 1 EV charging station for every 20 parking spaces. Additional charging stations are encouraged. Oh, and I said something. Now,
Taking that out.
I am,
installing?
yeah, I don't know what that meant. The applicant is proposing solar on the admin operation, turf center and environmental center and STP at a minimum with additional opportunities to be investigated. That was what they said on the code. And all buildings are required to meet the HERS rating as required by the town code.
I would have hoped that there was more environmental. I mean, there could be solar on every house. There could be requirements for heating and cooling. There could be requirements for electric-only appliances. All of these things are potentially things that will come down the pike through the state and eventually the town. And if we're trying to create an environmentally sustainable new development, it's a perfect opportunity to jump into some of that. So I'm disappointed.
State building code is pretty strict. Our town code is very strict.
What about these carts, the electric carts,
Mm.
charging, how is that operating?
So the golf carts are stored in the basement of the clubhouse. And there may be additional areas that they're proposing, but I don't know where they're located at this time. And also, I believe golf carts will be an amenity with the houses.
And they're electric carts?
Yeah,
So do they have charging?
Yes.
Is there a charging area?
Or charged by the hour.
Charging, but the electricity to charge
Yeah.
is coming from LIPA, except for several of the administrative buildings where there's some solar. So that's not going to, I don't know how, I shouldn't say, I don't know how much it's going to provide in terms of electricity to the facility itself and potentially other, like the golf carts. It's,
How about the environmental center? The turf care, none of those are getting solar?
Yes.
Yeah, they are.
They are. They're
Yeah.
both getting solar, so that's
A
a
lot
certain
of
number
roof
of square footage.
Might be a question for the applicant as to whether they would allow a homeowner to install solar on their roof.
Absolutely.
Microphone? We'd like to
We're
record
not
that.
going to not going to preclude it, but as Claire mentioned, every dwelling has to meet the HERS rating, and to get certain HERS rating, there are options to use solar, and that's probably the most used way to get your proper HERS rating. So.
Okay.
Should I mention that, the houses can be, have solar? That's an option.
On the-
Doesn't
on
sound
the
like
s- on the
it's gonna be
smaller-
prohibited, sounds like it would be permitted, so I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, on the smaller units, which there are a lot of them, they will not require solar in order to meet the HERS rating.
Which one?
All the smaller units, when Wayne said 1,700 square feet, that's the low end of the HERS. They will not require solar in order for them to meet.
Small houses have to be HERS.
Yes, but the rating is easier, that they can build the house without needing solar.
Yeah.
It's when you get to the 5,000 and 6,000 square
There's
foot
several ways to
houses
meet it.
that require it.
Right, but at least they're gonna have the opportunity to install it if they
But
if
they're
they
not,
want
but
to.
they will not be
They're
required.
Required.
Yes, that's my only point.
Okay, you want to go to the resolution?
Yep. So the Pine Barrens comments did not have anything specific to changes to the site plan.
Where are you now?
This is page 6. I had said A is the catch-all, B is the town engineer comments resolved. C, I'm taking out, there was no comments related to a change to the site plan. D is the emergency access connection, shall it be indicated to Spinney Road with input from the fire marshal office. Changes to the landscape lighting plan shall have the following changes for review and approval by the planning board. Remove reference, do you want planning board or staff? These are pretty these are pretty standard.
Staff.
Okay. I just want the sports lighting to come in. All cut sheets shall have the lighting used, that's a typical
Yeah, we
condition.
should take, I mean, we look at it in every other site plan, so.
Mhm. Indicate areas where the natural vegetation will be vegetated to be retained on the 10 site plan parcels. Revegetation of the existing disturbed area in the open space shall be indicated on a plan for review and approval by the planning board. Staff? Plan staff?
Why do you all want to do that? You're so overworked now.
Because I can double check it without having to schlep it to you.
And suppose we don't like it.
We're gonna make sure it's natural vegetation pursuant to the code, like we do with everything. Building elevations, so this I just want separate sheets for every building, so it's easy to go check up the workforce housing building and things like that, so that's what's recorded there. And then this is the functional lockable front doors for the garden units. Is B, and then these are general conditions. So this is what we did in typical things, but I don't know if you want this language in here. Like small changes can be verified and they would come back to Department of Land Management. So this would be, you know, can't get these plant, but here's another native plants, those kinds of things. So I did this catch-all condition here.
Where are you?
4A.
4A.
Major changes shall be brought to the planning board for review and approval prior to implementation.
What's the threshold for a major change?
So examples would be, let's see, did I have this in the other spot?
You have a finding?
Well, we do have minor for admins, and we do have, I cannot put this in here, but it's up to the planning board. This is discretionary.
Well, I'm now confused.
If I may, Claire is just trying to, not bind this board, but under the code, you have the administrative site plan review powers already, so that would occur. I think she's just trying to reiterate
I
that.
don't think we want any of
Going
this
to your
under-
question, I think
I'm gonna-
the point
I don't think
is
we want
staff's
anything under
determining that, not us.
Well,
Right,
But you
yeah.
can certainly.
I'm gonna
if
cross
there's
it out.
Or
Why?
if you already have that power, just be specific about what governs that
plans?
administrative
Well, we'll
review
just take it out.
already.
I'll just take it out.
Um,
It's
it
gonna be
would-
typical,
I
any
mean-
typical site plan, what are the changes,
Right, and
I'll take it.
if Jeff looks at it, I mean, is Jeff going to be supervising the planting and the installation of the plants?
Well, this is more than just,
I will.
this is
I
not
will.
planting, this is anything. Am I reading this correctly?
I'm gonna
On
take
the
it
site
out.
plan,
It's struck,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
struck. The applicant, you don't care, do you? 4A is
Well,
struck.
I think 4A is
Any
appropriate. I
changes
would
to the
want
site plan.
the staff to be able to, you change the location of a plant. I don't want to have to come back
We
that-
don't have any.
and
No,
have the
right.
argument that that should have been looked at by you.
Of course not.
Right,
We're
but-
not looking, we're not talking about that, that's apples and oranges.
I think you're gonna leave it to, I think if the board, the majority of the board will vote, we'll leave it to my discretion, which is my discretion on any site plan.
Which
And
you
if
have
was
you
gonna
have an
say-
issue
anyway,
and
right? So
you
it's
have a
not
problem,
necessary to put it in.
Yeah.
Just come back to us.
I was going to
That's
say,
all.
you ask who's defining minor or major field changes, it's right here, your staff. And we've had difficulty convincing her otherwise. So a lot of times we're back anyway regarding whatever it is. So I would,
Shutters.
I would
want my
trust
shutters
staff.
installed.
She ain't no pushover.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to strike that. A B is our typical catch-all Department of Public Safety comments, town engineer comments. The East Quogue Fire District had constant open up ended comments, so I want to make sure that there's addressed. All their lighting shall project downward and comply with dark skies. The lighting fixture shall be subject to planning board approval prior to installation. I'm gonna say staff. And the H is my typical no dusted dawn lighting fixtures. All proposed signs visible from Lewis Road should be reviewed and approved by the planning board. Emergency access connection shall be provided to Spinney Road with input from the fire marshal.
You left out the sprinklers.
Where's my sprinklers?
I saw sprinklers.
It's in 4E.
Oh, yes.
4E.
E, 4E.
Oh, I did.
It's there, but you didn't, you.
All
didn't-
residential buildings associated with the site plan, that's what I'm saying.
All residential.
It'll be sprinkled.
Yeah, but I'm gonna add his language
Yeah.
about the STP, just in case the code
Right.
requires it, so. Building elevations and site plans shall be provided for ADA compliant access. Prior to signatures, the approval for the ATHMP, approval of the groundwater management plan, approval of the phasing plan, approval of the construction management plan, list contact person for the project, approval of the SWIP, chart of the approximate area of natural vegetation be retained on a hole-by-hole basis for the golf course, approval of center turning lane by the planning board,
Where's the
affidavit.
center lane?
It's gonna be on Lewis Road.
So let's put that, approval of the central lane on Lewis Road.
We have any specific
Claire,
sensitively on Lewis
If,
Road?
if you can go back to the ADA compliance, I've been meaning to ask this.
Mhm.
What does that apply to? I mean, I'm assuming parking for handicapped, but what else has to be ADA compliant?
It would be any public bathrooms.
Entryways, ramps,
Clubhouse, any
clubhouse.
public-
Yep.
any buildings.
But not any of the individual home units, just the,
No.
No.
okay.
The public, do you want to say the public building elevations?
Will be whatever the building code requires.
Yeah, this was just
Mhm.
more
Yeah,
a knowledge
yeah.
for me.
Yeah, ADA is public.
So H is the affidavit, I is the 6 sets of plans. This would be the first sheet of every site plan for whoever is gonna sign plans. So you won't have to sign all 180 plans. Prior to issuance of the first building permit, town highway permit for the center turning lane and the groundwater monitoring agreement shall be submitted to the town planning board for review and recommendation to the town board of the town of Southampton, and then the town board's reviewing and approving the groundwater monitoring agreement.
The center turn lane plan, this is for Lewis Road, right? We're saying before we get a CO or the first building permit for any of the buildings. Is that gonna be a concern during construction traffic? Or whether we need a turn lane there or not?
That the center turn lane be installed prior
I'm just,
to? Yeah. Should we wait and see what the highway, because you're gonna approve the plan prior to signature. Do we see what the highway department says first, or should I ask the town engineer?
Yes. My concern is that, with construction traffic going in and out of it, it could be probably worse than, residential traffic going in there, which is going to put in a turn lane.
So put the turning lane in before construction.
Fine, but maybe I want to check with the town.
Yeah, okay.
Good idea.
And I don't know what the timing is on that to get from highway department getting installed, if that's too close, so.
It's like we have a plan already that we just got.
Right.
And Ray Tobias is looking at it for the planning board, so that's good. So we're close. Maybe it's a matter of the applicant meeting with the town highway department, maybe getting back to us on that, on timing. Okay. That would be part of the construction management though, right? Okay, so we'll tie it to the construction management plan. So construction management plan, including timing for turn lane? Okay. So that would be a modification to D, 5D.
5D, approval of construction. What are you adding?
Including timing for installation of the center turn lane on Lewis Road. I'm up to 7.
I just have a quick, I assume that the construction management plan includes areas where the trucks can come in and go out and restrictions and all of that. That's
Well,
what-
that'll be part of the SWIP as well.
Yeah, so some of it overlaps.
So is that covered down below 6A, town highway permit for center turning lane has to be issued prior to the first building permit then? Is it covered in that, or is it need to be included separate?
So the highway permit will need to be issued prior to the issuance of a building permit. So there'll be a referral of the project to the highway department anyways.
Right.
At the first building permit. So, with the access to the property, but this would just ensure that they know it's coming. He does, they do know it's coming. I gave him a forewarning, but that permit will have to be issued prior to. That is typical on any site plan. So I have, even though Anthony covers the covenants pretty thoroughly, I have the ones that I think are limited or associated with the site plan. And one is the groundwater monitoring agreement. He's got better language than me. I'm gonna put it in. The fertilization on the site plan, the residential parcels, so the 15%, or the 90.18 acres on the entire project site, and then the affordable housing covenants, and the typical title certification, mortgage consent, town attorney approval. And then this is related to the same thing that he had as a condition, which is the prior to the issuance of the CO for the 31st unit. It would be the CO for the workforce housing. And then prior to issuance of a CO for the golf course, that would be, it could not be occupied unless there's a CO, and then any maintenance bond associated with
It would be
landscaping.
great if your conditions that are the same, have the same language.
100%. No, and he had better language, so I'm gonna steal his.
You did.
For your consideration.
Any other questions from the board? Wayne? Okay, so we're gonna take a vote on this, starting at this end. Kate? Oh, sorry, I need a motion. A motion by George, second by Dennis. All in favor, opposed, Kate?
My no from earlier extends to this. I just want to say to the members of the board that the mutual respect that we've developed in a very short time enabled me to, vote the way that my conscience felt. And so I really appreciate and respect all of you for holding that space, even though we may not agree on how we're voting on the project. So,
Good, well
thank you.
said.
I'm a yes.
Craig, a yes?
I'm a no.
I'm a no.
Yes.
Okay, so you have 4 yeses, 3 nos. The site plan is approved for Lewis Road. And,
Staff. Claire.
Thank you, Wayne. My name is Ed DeVita. I'm a partner with Discovery Land Company since 1997. I've been a part of founding the company and have worked on all of the projects that Discovery's been involved in. This has been a 10-year process for us, and I've been involved with the process from the very outset. And I just want to thank the board for all the effort. I know it's a tremendous amount of effort. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it, hard looks at all of the details, and we're appreciative of it. We believe in the process, and we appreciate all the feedback. I think that I do believe that with the staff's very diligent efforts, as well as the community's feedback, which has been extensive throughout the process, through the public hearings of all the processes and the environmental review, has helped us to refine the plan to a plan that we are very proud of. You know, this is a plan that we'll be able to execute, that will be sustainable, and we are proud to become a member of the community, to show you that you made a good decision, and to deliver a project that improves the economic development of the area, supports jobs, supports housing, and is something that we'll all look forward to enjoying in the future. And with regards to Mr. Catalanado's comments, you know, he's a parent. I have 4 children. My oldest son is an environmental engineer. He's got a undergrad in civil from Berkeley and a master's in environmental engineering from Berkeley. I pushed him in that direction because I believe in those concepts. And, you know, I'm proud of what he's done in his career. And I can speak for our team that we're sincere in having a sustainable, properly executed plan. We're open book. We're Main Street tenants. Our door is open. The public comes in and can talk to us. If you need us on stuff, we'll come back. As you know, we've been here, always on the call. And I just want to thank you for the effort and the process, and look forward to proving that we really are what we say we are. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
By Rob, by
Second.
Gloria, second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.